Everyone wants to feel like they're the best at something, but when that belief turns into taking others for granted, the universe might just teach you a lesson. Understanding that there's always someone better out there is the key to humility. That's what truly makes the strongest person. My name is Mia. I've been married to my husband Thomas for 2 years. When we decided to get married, Thomas mentioned his troublesome sister who might end up being a burden to me. As an only child, I was thrilled at the idea of having a sister, but Thomas's words also made me anxious and curious about what kind of trouble she could be. Now, 2 years into our marriage, I fully understand and have experienced what Thomas meant. I was born into a relatively wealthy family. My father runs a mid-sized trading company and is well-informed and progressive in his thinking. My parents always respected my decisions, providing an environment where I could freely experience and explore my interests. In 2008, during the Lehman Brothers collapse, I was an 11-year-old elementary school student. Intrigued by the significant impact this event had on the world, I became fascinated by how a disruption in the flow of funds could cause such a global panic. This sparked my interest in financial circulation. Recognizing my curiosity and intelligence, my parents had me take an IQ test, and the results were beyond the normal range. Throughout middle and high school, I continued to research finance. In college, I chose a major that allowed me to deepen my understanding. As I learned more, I became eager to apply my knowledge and decided to try day trading. My professor suggested it as a way to experience capital flow firsthand, but warned about careful management to avoid debt. I researched extensively, identifying statistically favorable stocks for day trading. Starting with a modest sum of all the allowance I had saved up, I engaged in buying and selling the same stock within the same day, or starting with the sale and then buying it back before the day ended. This meant results came quickly. My predictions were spot on, and though the increases were modest, my funds grew steadily through this process and gradually increasing my investments. I managed to grow the initial amount by more than 50 times in a year. While the original sum was modest, I wasn't certain how impressive this achievement was on a larger scale. However, that wasn't my primary concern. What mattered most to me was whether the answers I had derived through research were correct. During the university seminar, I met Thomas, a student known for his analytical skills. We often found ourselves in agreement on many topics, which fostered a close bond between us. Following graduation, I had planned to join my father's company, but Thomas pointed out an opportunity at a foreign investment firm on our graduation day. At the subsequent celebration, Thomas confessed his feelings for me, and I immediately accepted. His intelligence was comforting, and his understanding nature put me at ease. As we embarked on our respective career paths, our relationship strengthened. Inspired by the concept of trade at my father's company, I researched foreign companies to gain negotiation advantages and establish a solid foundation for our deals. Meanwhile, Thomas used his analytical prowess to identify profitable investment opportunities, earning high praise within his firm. Despite our busy schedules, we prioritized dates, refreshing each other before diving back into work. Over 5 years, our careers blossomed and our relationship deepened. We became each other's support system, indispensable in our lives. It felt like the perfect time to take the next step forward. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Mia. Will you marry me? Thomas's proposal was met with an immediate and wholehearted acceptance from me. I couldn't wait to begin our life together. During the family meeting, Thomas hesitated before sharing something important. There's something about my sister Alice that you should know, he started cautiously. She's a bit difficult and might cause you some discomfort or inconvenience. Alice, Thomas's younger sister by 2 years, was known to be challenging. From a young age, she had been exceptionally bright, even more so than Thomas, who himself was considered a prodigy. This dynamic made them a notably remarkable pair in their neighborhood. As Alice grew older, her intelligence sometimes translated into a sense of superiority, viewing others as foolish and often looking down even on Thomas. This competitive spirit led her to enroll in a different but equally prestigious university, always boasting that hers was superior to Thomas's choice. In her career, she joined a rival investment and consulting firm, claiming mastery in investment strategies. However, Alice's attitude of superiority left her without close friends and seemingly without a significant other, harboring insecurities behind a brave facade. She believed no man was good enough for her, always striving to prove herself stronger than anyone else. Thomas worried that our engagement might bruise Alice's pride further, knowing her constant need to compete with him. He feared how she might react and was concerned about her attempt to assert dominance. I tried to reassure Thomas with a light-hearted "it's okay," but his worries seemed unending, leaving me even more curious about his intense sister. I finally met the infamous Alice at a family meeting. Her sharp, intelligent beauty was unmistakable, though she exuded a cold demeanor. I wasn't sure if that was just her nature or my own preconceived notions. Thomas's parents were kind and humorous, which put me at ease about getting along with them. Apart from the initial greeting, Alice remained silent, simply eating her meal while watching me, as if assessing me. After the meeting, as everyone was leaving, Alice pulled me aside. "I wondered what kind of person you would be, but you're nothing special, are you?" she remarked coolly. "Just a girl who got a job at her parents' company and is probably slacking off." Stunned, I didn't know how to respond. She continued, "I move large amounts of money and make significant profits. I'm on a completely different level than you. Thomas, settling for someone like you is disappointing. Today's lesson is realizing how much you don't measure up to my standard." With that, Alice left the room, leaving me standing there. When Thomas returned and noticed I hadn't left with Alice, he looked concerned and asked if something had happened. I brushed it off with a laugh, saying it was just a minor jab. He apologized for Alice's rudeness, but I assured him it didn't bother me, though I wondered what would happen the next time we met. Strangely, I found myself looking forward to the wedding. "That'll be interesting," I remarked to Thomas, surprising him. Our wedding was a grand affair, attended by family, friends, and colleagues from both sides. Thomas and I declared our eternal love and enjoyed a wonderful time with our guests. Throughout the event, Alice appeared grumpy and irritated from the start. I had heard from Thomas that Alice had neither friends nor a romantic partner, so I could somewhat understand her feelings, which I found slightly amusing. During a break for a wardrobe change, as I waited for the staff to assist me with my wardrobe change, Alice entered without warning. "This happiness of yours is only for today," she remarked coldly. "A plain woman like you won't get the spotlight. After this, you're just going to leech off Thomas' earnings, aren't you? I can't understand how anyone could be satisfied with that. On the other hand, I've climbed up on my own. I'm on a completely different level. I'll find someone even better than Thomas and have an even grander wedding." With that rapid-fire monologue, a self-satisfied Alice left without giving me a chance to respond. The staff walked in just as Alice departed, and I couldn't help but burst into laughter at the timing. I quickly apologized to the puzzled staff and began changing. Alice certainly knew how to keep things interesting. Despite our busy weekdays focused on work, Thomas and I cherished our weekends, making the most of our time together. Since the wedding, I had no contact with Alice. I anticipated seeing her next at Christmas when visiting my in-laws, but an unexpected connection with Alice arose sooner. My father sought external consulting for asset preservation and expansion at his company, and although I offered to handle it, he opted for outside expertise from a specific firm. When I heard the firm's name, it struck a familiar chord, but I couldn't quite place it. At the first meeting with the consulting firm, I was taken aback to see Alice among the representatives. The familiarity dawned on me. This was Alice's firm. Alice seemed equally surprised to see me but quickly composed herself and greeted me professionally. It silently became our agreement to act as if we were meeting for the first time, keeping our sister-in-law relationship a secret from the other team members. When I told Thomas about the encounter at home, he surprised me by saying Alice had already called him. "This is ridiculous. I can't work with her, she was just complaining," he said, suggesting I might want to step away from the project. I found the situation amusing and laughed it off, but I knew I had to remain professional. During the meeting, I pointed out flaws and inadequacies in their proposals, backing my arguments with perfect logic. My counterarguments unsettled them. Alice tried to fight back with past examples and mathematical evidence, but I skillfully exposed their weak points, leaving them silenced. The meeting ended in my favor, with the other team agreeing to prepare a second proposal for the next meeting. As I relaxed with coffee after they left, I received a phone call meant for me. It was Alice. "Today, you might have gotten the better of me, but I won't let it end like this," she declared. "Someone as excellent as me can't be bested by you. You're just running wild, carrying everything on your own, Mia." Amused, I replied calmly, "Alice, you need to rely on your colleagues and work together to make progress." "What gives you the right to lecture me?" she snapped. "I don't need guidance from someone like you." With that parting shot, she hung up. I burst out laughing, still holding the phone, drawing curious glances from nearby colleagues. From then on, I took full control of the meetings. Their teams scrambled to respond to my points, often finding themselves in a defensive position. Alice tried desperately for a comeback, but always fell short. Her frustration was plainly visible, though she managed to maintain her composure. Reflecting on this with Thomas later, he mentioned, "Alice has never been outdone by anyone before. Plus, Mom told me Alice found out that a guy she liked already had a girlfriend and got rejected before even confessing. That's probably adding to her irritation." I couldn't help but let out a surprised "huh" and stifle my laughter as the consulting project finally concluded successfully. The opposing team leader thanked us, expressing how much they had learned, and we all dispersed. As everyone left, Alice and I ended up alone. "I'm not satisfied with how things went. I'll make sure to get the better of you next time," Alice declared, her tone sharp. "Just so you know, I'm more excellent. I even bought a tower mansion at my age. Only someone as outstanding as me could afford a brand new tower mansion." Alice had made waves as an investor and had managed to earn enough for such a purchase. "We'll toast among the elites," looking down on the commoners below. "You, as one of those ordinary people, should just look up and despair," she added, leaving after her piece, as usual. Thomas confirmed that Alice's claims were true. She had indeed found success as an investor and recently purchased a tower mansion to live in on her own. Alice was undeniably talented, and such an achievement was well within her reach. While luck played a part, I genuinely wanted to congratulate her. A few days later, during the weekend, I had business at a tower mansion. As I stopped at a mid-level floor, a door opened, and to my surprise, the resident stepping out was Alice. We locked eyes and both exclaimed in surprise. "Why are you here? If you're not invited to the party, did you come to clean?" I blurted out. Alice chuckled. "It seems today is the day of my celebrity home party, but no, not at all. I'm here to deliver something to an acquaintance on this floor." "You have an acquaintance here? And you came down from where?" I asked, puzzled. "My home is on the top floor of this mansion. Naturally, I had to come down," Alice explained matter-of-factly. "But you and Thomas live in a single-story house, don't you?" "How can you have a home here?" I countered, bewildered. "Thomas can't handle heights. That's why our house is single-story," Alice replied calmly. "This place is my office and workshop." "Your workshop is on the top floor of a tower mansion. Don't joke like that," I said incredulously. "This whole place is mine," Alice stated firmly. "Why shouldn't I use the top floor?" As we argued loudly in the hallway, a voice behind us interrupted. "Alice, what's going on?" Alice turned and apologized. "Sorry, Senior." The woman who had spoken and 3 others looked at us with concern. "I apologize for not greeting you downstairs. I was just dealing with—" Alice seemed momentarily at a loss for words. The woman Alice called Senior looked at me, searching her memory, and then exclaimed in surprise, "Aren't you Mrs. Mia, our new external board director starting this month?" Alice was speechless at this unexpected revelation. The senior continued, "She's also known as the investment goddess whom Alice admires." Clearly bewildered, Alice struggled to comprehend what was being said. I had started day trading as a student, gradually progressing to more serious investing. Using my day trading earnings, I learned investment strategies through practice. My analytical and research skills helped me identify companies with growth potential, and I invested wisely. The funds I managed grew rapidly. My father provided me with the freedom to use a piece of land he owned in the city center, where I began building a tower mansion, following the trend of mansion investments. I wanted to understand what it was all about, so this tower mansion is the result of my efforts. Managing a mansion is more challenging than it seems. Income comes from rent, but maintenance costs and taxes are higher than expected. Furthermore, even a few delayed rent payments from tenants can disrupt smooth management. Regarding being called the investment goddess, that seems to be a recent label for me, coined due to my extraordinary success in investments. Hearing that Alice admired me was a surprise. Alice was too stunned to keep up with the unfolding situation. "That's why my room is on the top floor here," I explained. "I own a significant share of your company, which made me a board director." Alice was overwhelmed by this unexpected turn of events. Moreover, Alice, while extremely talented, has a poor reputation regarding teamwork and attitude towards colleagues. If she can improve, she can continue in her current role. Alice was already reeling from this harsh reality, kneeling and collapsing on the floor. Later, Thomas told me that Alice, once a fierce wolf, had become a small dog. It seemed she finally understood that there's always someone above her. I had never really paid much attention to Alice's antics, knowing we were on different levels. But looking back, I do feel a bit guilty for finding it all so amusing. Reflecting on my previous attitude, I realize I still have a lot to learn. Alice, having stepped back from the limelight, now faces reduced income and a string of losses in investments. Her ability to pay rent for the Tower Mansion apartment is increasingly compromised. I'm considering issuing an eviction notice if the rent arrears continue for another 2 months. People's abilities vary, and even similar skills can differ in levels. Alice has become a lesson for me to never underestimate anyone and to treat others with respect. Thomas apologized for not being more involved in these events, but it's not his responsibility at all. His concern shows his good nature, and I love him all the more for it. My current hope is to start a family with Thomas soon. I can't wait to enjoy life as a family of 3. If Alice changes her mindset and broadens her perspective, she'll surely find friends and a partner soon. One night, I had a dream of a family of 3, but by the end of next year, we'd be a family of 5 with triplets. I woke up sweating but couldn't help laughing at the prospect. I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want any mess in my new house, so please leave. What do you mean? I don't want to live with someone I don't like. I'm Laura, I'm 34. I was married to Paul, who's younger than me by 4 years. But that didn't bother me until recently. I met Paul at a party through my friend Lucy. Paul and Lucy went to the gym together. Paul was good-looking, with a strong body and a nice smile. He was friendly and fun. I was single then, and Lucy really wanted me to meet someone. So she introduced me to all the guys at the party, including Paul. Hey Paul, meet Laura, my friend who's into books and has a lot of money. Lucy, stop it, you're embarrassing me. Don't be embarrassed, it's a compliment. I blushed and said thank you. Lucy, you could have also said smart and beautiful about me. You're right, you're smart and beautiful. Now have fun, and I'll check on the other guests. After Lucy left, Paul asked, Hey, why did Lucy call you a nerd? I smiled and said, Well, I'm an engineer, and I work for a software company. I'm busy with work most of the time, so my friends tease me and call me a nerd. Wow, that's cool. So you must make a lot of money since they call you a millionaire nerd. I burst out laughing. Yeah, you could say that. We spent the evening talking and getting to know each other. Paul was really nice and I liked him a lot. After that, we started going out for coffee and dinner. Paul even used to pick me up from work so we could spend more time together. He worked as an assistant in a small company. After a few months of dating, Paul asked me to marry him. I loved him, but I wasn't sure if it was the right time. Plus, he was younger than me, so I was worried if he was serious. Paul, are you really serious about this? Of course, we've been dating for a while now. It's only been a few months since we met, and you're 4 years younger than me. Poor chocolate. Come on, Laura. Are you still stuck on those old beliefs that say the husband should be older? It really doesn't matter to me. But I just wanted to make sure you're okay with it. Relax, Laura. You're a modern woman. You shouldn't be worrying about these silly things. Paul convinced me that we would be happy together as a married couple, so I agreed. We met each other's parents and told them about our plans. While my dad, Glenn, didn't say much and seemed happy, my mom had a private chat with me. Laura, dear, I hope you've talked about money matters with Paul. Yes, Mom, don't worry. I'm just worried that your success in your career might cause issues between you and Paul. Men can be sensitive about these things. No, Mom, Paul is really understanding. He doesn't have any ego about it. He's even agreed to help with household chores since I'm busy with work. That's good to hear. Take care, honey. This talk made me realize that I hadn't talked about finances with Paul, and he hadn't brought it up either. I never really cared about his money because I earned enough. But Paul had asked about my salary even before proposing. It bothered me for a bit, but I decided to let it go. I was excited to start married life with Paul. After the wedding, we went on our honeymoon to Florida, a gift from my company. We had a great time. Then, about a month later, after dinner, Paul sat me down and asked for a favor. Honey, I'm really sorry to bring this up, but I need your help. What's wrong, Paul? Is everything okay? Well, not really. My parents are having some trouble. They live in an apartment on the 2nd floor, and there's no elevator. It's getting hard for them to climb the stairs as they get older. I see. Why don't we move them to a ground floor house or an apartment with an elevator? He didn't seem to like that idea. Actually, Laura, I want to build them a house. I was surprised. Okay, but building a house can be really expensive, you know. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Do you have enough savings, or are you thinking of getting a loan? Paul looked down for a moment and said, Laura, I was wondering if you could lend me the money to build the house. I was shocked. This was unexpected. I didn't know what to say. Huh? What? But you make good money, so why do you need to borrow? But Paul, I'm not sure if I can lend such a big amount. Why not? Paul got a bit aggressive. I didn't know how to say no, so I just said, okay, let me think about it. I'll let you know. I spent the night wondering if it was a good idea to give Paul all my savings to build a house for his parents. I've worked so hard for this money, saving up for my own future. The next morning, as I was leaving for work, Paul hugged me and said, Laura, I'll wait for your decision. Let's talk about it this weekend. I'm running late. I wasn't feeling too good about this situation, so I talked to a colleague for advice. She suggested making an official contract with Paul to ensure he'd pay back the money. It sounded like a good plan to make sure everything was clear and Paul wouldn't back out later. When I got home, I told Paul I could lend him the money, but he'd have to pay me back in 3 years. Surprisingly, Paul agreed. I made it clear he'd need to sign official papers, and if he didn't pay me back, I could take legal action. Paul laughed when I mentioned the papers. You can't be serious. I am serious. I have the papers ready. What? He looked surprised, then said, okay, I'll sign. He smirked and signed the papers. I transferred the money to him, but I still felt uneasy because Paul's salary wasn't enough to pay me back. After that, Paul started acting strangely. He came home late and didn't help with chores. When I complained, he said he was busy at work. My feelings for him started to fade. On weekends, he was often away, overseeing the construction of his parents' new house. Sometimes he didn't come home, saying he was staying with his parents. I started to suspect something was wrong. I can't take this anymore, Paul. You've been acting strange and living off me like a parasite in this house. What do you mean? How dare you say that? You've been living off my money since we got married. You haven't contributed financially at all. And now you don't even help with chores. He looked at me and said casually, you knew I didn't earn much, so why did you marry me? I was shocked. What? I'm not in the mood to argue with you. I'm looking forward to the housewarming party your mom's organizing at our new house tomorrow, he said, mocking me. I couldn't believe it. He didn't even tell me the house was finished, and they're having a party without inviting me. You built the house with my money, and you didn't even tell me it was done. And now your mom's throwing a party without inviting me? What the hell? I yelled. He shrugged. Oops, my bad. Come if you want, he said, and left, humming. I was so angry I wanted to break something, but I calmed down. An hour later, my mother-in-law called. Hello, I answered. Hi. I'm calling to let you know we're having a housewarming party at our new place tomorrow, she said. Okay, I replied shortly before hanging up. I was pretty sure Paul had asked her to invite me. If she genuinely wanted me there, she would have called earlier. Besides, she's never been friendly to me, not even when we first met or after the wedding. At first, I didn't want to go because of everything that had happened. But then I thought if I didn't, Paul and his mom would probably say I'm just jealous of their new house. So I decided to put on a fake smile and go for a bit. When I got there, I saw the entrance decorated with flowers, and Paul was standing with his mom, greeting guests. As I walked in, my mother-in-law said, "Oh, you came. I didn't think you would." "What made you think that?" Paul interrupted. "You're here now, so come inside." I followed Paul inside and saw my father-in-law sitting alone. He smiled genuinely when he saw me and thanked me for the money. It was the only time I felt good about lending it, because neither Paul nor his mom had shown any gratitude. Paul and his mom ignored me the whole time. I just chatted with some relatives, waiting for the party to end so I could leave. When everyone left, I said goodbye to my father-in-law. "Goodbye, take care of yourself," I told him. But then my mother-in-law stepped in. "You don't need to worry about my husband when you can't even take care of your own." "Huh? What do you mean? You've been a terrible wife, not doing any chores and making my son do everything." "What kind of wife are you?" He volunteered. "But you should be doing your share. I work too, so I need his help." You should be grateful he puts up with you. Instead, you abuse and torture him." "What? I've never tortured or abused Paul." "Don't act innocent. Paul told me how you've mentally tortured him for money and got him to sign an agreement." "What kind of wife does that?" "My father-in-law tried to stop her." "Megan, stop. Why are you being cruel instead of grateful? Sit quietly or go to your room." I couldn't believe Megan would treat Thomas like this. Then she turned to me. "You should be grateful my son married you. Who else would marry an old and ugly woman like you?" I was so frustrated with her words that I lost my temper and shouted back, "How can you talk to me like this?" Paul stepped in. "Laura, watch your language. How dare you raise your voice at my mother? Did you hear how she spoke to me?" He rolled his eyes and added, "I can't handle your outbursts anymore." "What? My outbursts? Do you realize how badly you and your mother are treating me? I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want any negativity in my new dream house. So just leave." "What? Why?" "Yes, I don't want to live with someone who speaks to me like this. You've been living off my income all this time, and now you're calling me trash? You're pathetic, Laura. Let's be clear. You knew you couldn't find someone as good-looking as me, given your age and looks, so you married me. And now you shouldn't be complaining about money," Paul said. I felt my face burning with anger. Feeling deceived and furious, I yelled at him, "I can't stay with such a shallow person. I want a divorce and my money back." Paul started laughing evilly. "Sure, you want a divorce. Fine, but you'll have to pay me back the money if you want it. Since you want the divorce, it's on you." Paul's sinister laughter revealed a side of him I hadn't seen before. I was livid at his evil smirk. "You'll have to repay the money I lent you, or I'll take legal action." "Go find your stupid papers first," he sneered. Feeling numb, I left, unable to bear any more insults. They had belittled and mistreated me. I went straight to the bank where I kept the papers in the locker, only to find them missing. Checking the bank log, I discovered Paul had accessed the locker a month ago. It was a joint account, so he had access too. We'd opened it after getting married to save money, but it was mostly my earnings going in. Even the copy in my wardrobe was gone. Realizing how Paul had deceived me, I understood his interest in me at Lucy's party was because of my salary. He'd been living comfortably off my earnings in my house. Then he emotionally manipulated me into lending him money for his house and later kicked me out. And now he's stolen the agreement so I couldn't get my money back. I'd been tricked, but thankfully, I still had the original papers. I gradually felt like Paul might betray me, so I kept the original documents safe at my parents' house and kept copies in the bank and my wardrobe. Despite all the pain and insults, I was relieved that I followed my instincts and kept the papers away from Paul's reach. I called my mom and told her everything. She was furious and wanted to sue Paul and his mother for mistreating me. She also admitted she wasn't surprised. I asked her, "Did you know about Paul's intentions?" "No, I didn't know for sure, but I had a feeling he wasn't truly in love with you." "How did you know?" "He rushed into the wedding. You hardly knew each other when he proposed and insisted on getting married." "Yeah, you're right. I should have been more cautious." "When you came home, I asked if you talked about finances with him, and you said yes." "Actually, Mom, I lied. I never talked about money with him, and I never asked about his salary. It just wasn't important to me." Well, learn from this. Don't trust too easily. I hired a lawyer and sent divorce papers with a notice demanding repayment in 3 years. If not, the court would sell his property to pay me back. Paul and his mom had no idea what was coming. When they got the papers and notice, they tried calling me, but I ignored them and blocked their numbers. Paul even tried calling my parents, but they ignored him too. Paul left a voicemail on my office phone saying, "I'm sorry for everything, please forgive me. You know how much I love you. My mom influenced me, but I hope you'll take me back." Paul always used my emotions to manipulate me, but not this time. I deleted his message and blocked his contact. His lawyer also asked me to forgive some of the money, as Paul couldn't afford it. I ignored the request. After all the insults and attacks, I couldn't forgive them. I waited patiently for 3 years. Paul could only manage to pay half, mostly through loans because his salary was low. He had to sell the house he'd insulted me and kicked me out of, the dream house. And now, 3 years later, he has to sell his house to pay me back. It seems like things didn't go well for Paul and Megan after everything came to light. Paul moved back in with his parents and they faced a lot of backlash from the neighborhood. Megan continued to mistreat Paul and Thomas for their financial situation, even after everything. Paul's reputation took a hit at work, and he eventually left his job and moved away. Thomas also left Megan and went to live with his brother in the countryside. Megan now works as a nanny to make a living. I don't feel sorry for either Paul or Megan, as they brought this upon themselves. I'm glad to hear that Thomas will finally be able to live peacefully in his retirement years. It sounds like you're being careful this time around. You've been dating Charles for a year now. He's your colleague and 35 years old. You've known him for a while. But there were no romantic feelings before. About a year after your divorce, you started to enjoy each other's company at an office party, and things progressed from there. It's good that you're taking your time to think things through this time. It's important to be cautious after what you've been through. Hi everyone, I'm June and my husband Gabriel is helping me write this story. Before I dive in, let me tell you something. My first meeting with Gabriel's parents, Louis and Lena, was a complete disaster. Here's what they said. I can't believe you would date such a loser, Gabriel. This woman has nothing going for her. She just works a desk job in a small office. How will she ever give us a good life? Mom, I love June and she's the only one I want. I don't care about how much money she has or earns. Those things never mattered to me. Well, they matter to us, Gabriel. We've made that very clear from the start. If you had listened to us, you would understand. Gabriel, if this girl has nothing else to offer, she can't be our daughter-in-law. We won't approve of her. You need to find someone else. No, Mom, June is the one for me. I'm going to marry her. I had the whole proposal planned, and now you've ruined everything. I was shocked the entire time this conversation happened. Yes, I was surprised Gabriel was planning to propose to me. We had been dating for 3 years, and I hoped he would ask me to marry him. But I didn't expect it so soon. But that wasn't the only reason I was stunned. Louis and Lena's reaction to our relationship was very upsetting. Gabriel had warned me about them. He had said, Look, June, I've already met your dad. He's a great man and a great father. I know you have high hopes for my parents, but let me tell you, they are not good people. Gabriel, how can you speak about your parents like that? They must be good people since they worked hard to raise you. It must have been tough for them. They're really hardworking. You don't get it, June. Yes, they worked hard to put me through college, which helped me get a good job, but it was all out of greed. They always wanted me to marry someone wealthy so they could benefit from my wife's money and live comfortably. They won't be happy when they find out you work in an office. I was naive and didn't realize how selfish and cruel parents could be. My own parents were kind, and even Gabriel acknowledged that. Although he financially supported his parents, he didn't have much contact with them. He disliked them for some reason but didn't cut ties because they guilted him about their sacrifices. When I met his parents, I saw how greedy they were. Despite Louis and Lena's protests, Gabriel proposed to me and we got married. They threatened to boycott the wedding but eventually came after Gabriel pleaded with them. He didn't have much family and wanted his parents there desperately. They only agreed when he assured them that my family wasn't poor. My father owned a house and some property. They made it clear they were there for their own gain. They told me, ChatGPT, just so you know, June, we still don't approve of this marriage. Gabriel is successful and we expected him to marry someone wealthy. We're disappointed he didn't. We wouldn't have come if we thought you had nothing. Thank goodness your father has something to his name. I hope you remember us and our presence today when you eventually inherit the house. I'm getting married today, guys. My father is healthy, and there's no reason for you two to bring up inheritance. I walked away from them after hearing their words. My father was my only family, and hearing that on my wedding day was sickening. I couldn't believe Louis and Lena had the audacity to demand a share of my money. I didn't tell Gabriel about it. I didn't want to ruin his day, and I knew it was hard for him to cut off his parents. Unfortunately, things went downhill from there. Gabriel and I were happy together, but his parents were always nagging us about money. They kept asking about my father's wealth, but we never gave them a straight answer, so they kept bothering us. Their behavior was embarrassing and entitled. They had no right to know my father's worth. We couldn't avoid them because we lived in the same city, and Gabriel wanted some relationship with them. For a few years, I tolerated their greed. They drained our savings by asking for more and more money, making excuses and guilt-tripping us when we refused. and they never stopped commenting on me and my inheritance. ChatGPT. I started to ignore them, but things got worse when my father was diagnosed with cancer. It was aggressive, and he didn't have much time left. We flew to visit him a couple of times since he lived far away. Louis and Lena weren't happy about it. They said, "You shouldn't spend so much on flying to your father. You're doing it too often, it'll drain your money. Yeah, he won't live long anyway, and he's in hospice. There's nothing you can do for him now, so it's better to save your money and not waste it there." Visiting my dying father isn't a waste of money, guys. And what we do with our money is our business. You have no right to tell us. We're your in-laws and we have a say. It's for your own good. You should spend money on people who'll be around longer to enjoy it. I was furious at their words. Dealing with my dad's illness was already overwhelming, and anyone who's lost a parent knows how tough it is. Louis and Lena weren't being supportive. Instead, they were subtly telling me not to see my father and to spend money on them instead. Thankfully, Gabriel stood up for me and ended the conversation. But from that day on, I was determined to set things straight. Once I was in a better place emotionally, I vowed to show them where they stood. My dad passed away about 3 months after his diagnosis. It was devastating. Even though I knew it was coming, seeing his health decline was incredibly hard to accept. Gabriel was my rock through it all. He held my hand as we arranged the funeral. Louis and Lena bombarded me with messages asking about inheritance and funeral costs. It disgusted both of us, but we didn't react. We decided they'd face consequences when we returned home. As expected, Louis and Lena were at our doorstep as soon as we got back. They pestered us with questions. "So the funeral's done. I've been curious. What did you inherit? Your father must have left you the house, right?" "What on earth are you talking about, Lena? How is my inheritance any of your business? I just came back from my father's funeral, and this is what you're concerned about." "Oh, come on, June. Don't be so sour. Since Gabriel married you, we've been wondering why. I mean, you don't have a fancy job, and you're not exactly a beauty queen. What did he see in you?" "Louis, and I figured it must be about money." "Mom, what's gotten into you? How can you insult me and my wife like that? We got married because we love each other. I've told you this so many times. Please don't bring it up today." "Gabriel, there's no need for the theatrics. We're just asking a question. June can answer, and we'll be satisfied. We wouldn't mind if you married her for money. We'd be happy to know you got a good deal." "You're awful parents to accuse your own son of being a gold digger. You two are beyond belief. I can't fathom how someone as amazing as Gabriel ended up with parents like you." ChatGPT. Enough with the small talk, June. Tell us what you got in your inheritance. This is what I've been waiting for. Your father must have left you something. Gabriel mentioned he lived in a big house. You could just tell us now and buy us a house instead. We'd make great use of the money. After all, we're your parents now. Hearing this made my blood boil. I was furious, and Gabriel looked at his parents in disbelief. Even he couldn't believe how greedy and selfish they were. My father hadn't been gone for even a month, and they were already planning to use my inheritance for themselves. They even started calling themselves my new parents. That was the moment I knew I had to act. I had tolerated them for years for Gabriel's sake, but now I needed to show Gabriel their true colors. I replied, "Actually, my dad didn't own the house when he passed away. I'm sorry to disappoint you. He did own it for a long time, but he had to let it go recently for reasons." "What? So your father didn't even own his house anymore?" "No, as I said, he owned it a long time ago. He had to let go of it recently, so no, I didn't inherit the house or anything else." "Oh my God, so your father was poor after all. I knew you weren't wealthy. Your father couldn't even keep his house until the end. He died with nothing. Leave our son, you're worthless." "Mom, our marriage isn't over because she didn't inherit anything. You can't ask her to leave me over that." "Don't interrupt, Gabriel. We won't allow this marriage to continue. You disappointed us by marrying into a poor family. You didn't consider our happiness. I'm ashamed to have a son like you. June, I'm sure you trapped my son into marrying you. People like you use tricks to lure men. Your plan was to cut us off and take his money. Well, I won't let that happen." Louis and Lena pressured Gabriel to divorce me and marry a wealthy girl so they could live in luxury. Gabriel was upset and breaking down. I knew I had to help him make a decision. "Gabriel, are you going to let your parents continue this? I've tolerated their greed for too long because you felt guilty cutting them off. Are you still going to keep them in our lives? I don't think we can recover from this, June. I've had enough too. Mom, Dad, you've shown me your true colors today. You've used me for your own gain for years. I won't tolerate it anymore. Don't be foolish, Gabriel. This girl will lead you astray from your family. We're doing this for your own good. We didn't invest in you just so you could give charity to someone else. You need to divorce your wife and start over. There's still time for you to find a wealthy wife. We'll help you this time. You've made too many mistakes on your own. No, I won't leave my wife because she didn't inherit anything. I'm done being manipulated. I'm staying with June. You two won't be a part of my life anymore. What will you gain by staying with June? This isn't what we wanted. She's not worthy of you. If you stay in this marriage, we want nothing to do with you. We won't help you when she leaves you destitute. Seeing Lena and Louis's behavior, I decided to reveal the truth. I knew telling them my true net worth would make them beg and plead. I don't need to take Gabriel's money. I have plenty on my own, and I'll take care of him just fine without your help. Nice try, June. You don't have to lie to us, Lena snapped. Yeah, you're just the daughter of a poor man. You don't make enough money from your job to support Gabriel, Louis added. Well, actually, I have $50 million in my bank account. And no, I didn't earn it from my job. It's from my father. That's impossible. Your father didn't have anything, Lena scoffed. Don't try to deceive us, June. We can see through your lies. It won't work. We'll make sure you divorce our son and leave him to us, Louis threatened. I smiled at them and glanced at Gabriel, who gave me the go-ahead. He knew me well enough to anticipate what was coming next. I opened my bank account and showed them my balance. Louis and Lena's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. They exchanged a shocked look and stammered, "No, this can't be real. You must have faked these bank statements. You said you didn't inherit anything. How? You also mentioned your father didn't own his house. Where did this money come from?" Lena demanded. What I didn't mention was that my father owned a big ranch where he lived. He sold it before he passed away and gave me an early inheritance. He didn't want me to use my own money for his care. Unlike you two. Louis and Lena couldn't believe what they were seeing or hearing. They turned to Gabriel for confirmation, and when he confirmed it, they fell silent for a moment, exchanging another look. Then their tone shifted completely. Oh, this is wonderful news. We thought Gabriel made a mistake, but your father did right by you, June. You should have told us about this sooner, Lena exclaimed. Yeah, we got worked up for nothing. You did marry well, son. We're so happy for you both, Louis added. With Gabriel's expression, I knew my job was done. He would handle the rest, so I held back my frustration and let him take over. I trusted him to make the right decisions, and he didn't disappoint. Gabriel was furious and unleashed his anger on his parents. How dare you stand here and keep talking to us? You were pushing us to divorce, and now you act like June is family. How could you? We didn't know her net worth back then, Gabriel. She hid the truth from us. How are we supposed to know she's actually rich? Louis pleaded. Yeah, June, we're sorry for assuming the worst. You surprised us. Can we move past this now that you've got an apology? Lena added. No, absolutely not. I won't forgive you for what you did today. I just buried my father, and you didn't let me grieve in peace. I'll never forget or forgive this. It's enough. Since you think so little of me, you don't deserve to be in my life. Get out of my house and don't come back. Starting next month, you're on your own. I won't be helping you financially anymore. You don't deserve it after today. After Gabriel's ultimatum, Louis and Lena went ballistic, begging and pleading for us not to cut them off. But neither Gabriel nor I paid them any mind. Gabriel was so angry that he threatened to call the police if they didn't leave our house. Eventually, they heard the warning and left, but they continued to blow up our phones with calls and texts. We blocked their number and warned them that we would press charges if they didn't stop harassing us. For the next few days, Gabriel handled his family while I focused on grieving for my father. Finally, in a peaceful setting, I could reflect on my childhood memories and remember my father for the good times. He was truly amazing. When he understood I didn't want to move back south, he sold his property so I wouldn't have to worry about it. He even used some of the sale money to pay for hospice, not wanting me to spend my own money on his care. He was a great parent, and I miss him dearly. While Gabriel mourned the loss of his toxic family, he faced guilt from others who didn't understand why he cut ties. However, when he shared the full story, they stopped pressuring him. Now, everyone who knows Louis and Lena is disgusted by their behavior. Despite us blocking their numbers and changing our locks, they persistently try to contact us. We're considering restraining orders if they don't stop soon. Meanwhile, I recently discovered that I'm pregnant. It's bittersweet knowing my father won't be part of my child's life, but Gabriel and I are excited about this unexpected blessing. We're preparing ourselves to welcome our little one into the world with open arms. Hello, my name is Juniper, and I'm 37 years old. I never thought I'd have a story like this to share, but here it is. Get ready, everyone, because it's quite a ride. One sunny afternoon, my in-laws, Margaret and Julian, came to our house after a long-awaited vacation. They had always wanted to visit America, and I was happy to have them stay with us. Since they lived in France, we didn't get to see them often. From the times we did spend together at family reunions and chatting online, I thought everything was fine between us. But I was wrong. Without me knowing, my mother-in-law and father-in-law were planning something bad to hurt my daughter and me, and I didn't realize it for a long time. I had no idea their visit would uncover a hidden layer of bitterness and hostility behind their friendly appearance. How are you? I'm good, Grandma. Hi, Grandpa. How was your flight? It was tiring. I'm really exhausted. I need a nap. Not before you have some refreshments first. Ah, Juniper, you spoil me. Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad. I'm glad to see you're doing well. Yes, my son. We made it. Thank God. Hey, speak English, you two. We want to be part of the conversation too. This is just your cue to brush up on some French, dear. From this conversation, you'd think we were just a big, happy family. I thought so too. But what happened next will make you rethink those overly nice family members you have. You see, if it wasn't clear before, I'm married into a French family, taking on a new culture and language with my husband, Nicholas. While I hadn't become fluent in French, I knew enough to sense when something was wrong. Margaret and Julian always acted warm and loving when Nicholas was around, hiding their true feelings about me and my daughter, Ashley. I began to see their true colors when my husband went to work. As a housewife, I spent most of my days at home, taking care of our household and family. With my in-laws visiting, I made sure to be home so we could catch up. Ashley had just finished her freshman year of university and was home for the summer, so she and I finally had time to spend with our relatives. I hoped for a joyful and harmonious time together, filled with games, laughter, and truly getting to know each other better. At first, everything seemed fine, but as the days went by, I noticed a strange pattern. My in-laws started speaking exclusively in French, deliberately excluding Ashley and me. We tried to be polite and didn't say anything out of respect. One day, Ashley asked, "Mom, why are they always talking in French now?" "Oh, sweetheart, it's okay. That's the language they're most comfortable with, so we need to be understanding." I get that, but it's happening all the time now. I thought we'd get to hang out with them and have a great time together. We will, sweetie, we will. Let's just give them time to adjust to America. It must be a lot for them to handle, okay? It'll get better. I know it will. So Ashley and I dismissed it as just a harmless quirk. But as days turned into weeks and their conversations grew harsh whenever I entered the room, my suspicions deepened. It became clear they were intentionally isolating us, keeping secrets within their private French exchanges. Ashley grew more and more curious about their behavior, feeling hurt because she really wanted to connect with her cool French grandparents, but they were making it very difficult. In an attempt to bring us closer together and bridge the gap that was forming, one day I proposed we play a game. The rules are simple. We'll go around telling each other 2 truths and 1 lie, and the rest of us will guess which one is the lie. Oh, that sounds fun, and it would be a good way to get to know each other. To our surprise, both Margaret and Julian didn't seem excited about the game. They looked bored and slightly irritated, sensing their discomfort and trying to be a good host. I decided to scrap the idea and ask them what they would like to do instead. I would like to drink some tea and chat with my husband. Oh, okay. Is it okay if Mom and I join? No. His outburst shocked us. But he quickly recovered. I mean, no, my dear. We just would like to enjoy a quiet afternoon. Okay, we understand. We're older, and these kinds of games may not be our thing. But you two never talk to us. You're always speaking in French. How dare you talk to us like this? So disrespectful. Were you raised on a farm? How dare you speak to my daughter this way? She's just a kid. She wants to hang out with you guys, but you're making it difficult. How can you say something so mean? Whatever. Let's go, Julian. Julian and Margot stood up from the table, speaking loudly in French, not bothering to hide their words. I couldn't understand exactly what they were saying, but from their tone and body language, it was clear they were talking about us. And it wasn't nice. I felt too embarrassed to tell Nicholas when he came home that evening. I was afraid he would notice the tension at dinner. To our surprise, both Margot and Julian were suddenly very nice to us, as if nothing had happened earlier. We were chatting as if we were one big happy family, but Ashley and I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. Days later, fueled by curiosity and feeling betrayed, I decided to take action. While Margot and Julian chatted in the living room, I discreetly reached for my phone and hit record. With shaking hands, I captured their voices and words, hoping to uncover the truth hidden in their secret conversations. After successfully recording their voices, I gained confidence. One day turned into 2, then 3, then 4, and soon I had collected recordings of their conversations spanning a week. I carefully gathered evidence, documenting whenever they spoke. I only had basic knowledge of French, so I couldn't understand everything they said. But as I listened repeatedly, I caught some rude words. I was afraid of what I might find if I translated everything, but I knew I had to uncover the truth. Luckily, I had a friend who spoke French. Camille was from Senegal and moved to the States as a baby. Although she grew up as an American, her immigrant parents made sure she could still speak her native language. She was the perfect person to help me decipher the information. I called her and asked her to come over. Once she arrived, I took her to the back of the house so Margot and Julian wouldn't see her. Camille and I found a moment alone outside to talk. I poured my heart out to her, sharing all the strange behavior and my growing suspicions. Camille was incredibly supportive, promising to help me uncover the truth. From what you're saying, it sounds like they're talking about some shady stuff. But don't worry, I'll do my best to help. Thanks, love. You're a lifesaver. Just being a best friend. As I played the audio for Camille, her face went pale, and she started trembling. Camille, what's wrong? I can't breathe. Panic attack. She was gasping loudly for air, and I started to feel scared too. I never expected her to be so overwhelmed by what she heard. Fear gripped me as I tried to calm her down, doing my best to provide comfort. I hurried inside to get a glass of water and helped her lie down in the cool shade to calm down. I served her and massaged her skin until her attack subsided. Thankfully, I managed to help her without raising suspicion from Margot and Julian, who were probably still gossiping inside. Ashley happened to be near her bedroom window and overheard the commotion. Worried, she rushed downstairs to check on us. I explained what happened, telling her that I secretly recorded her grandparents and it was so disturbing that it caused Camille to have a panic attack. We were both horrified by what we might uncover when Camille was ready to talk. Once she had fully recovered and was safe in my bedroom with Ashley, Camille apologized for her reaction. Don't you dare apologize. You did nothing wrong. What matters is that you're safe now. Julian and Margot didn't see you. They're outside in the front lawn, so Ashley and I managed to bring you upstairs. You really scared us, Camille, but I'm relieved you're okay. I probably should have warned you about my panic and anxiety attacks, but I wasn't expecting to hear such awful information. Tell us, Camille, what were they saying? Camille took a deep breath and a sip of water before relaying what she heard on the recordings. Juniper, Ashley, there's no easy way to say this. It seems Margot and Julian want to. They want to sell Ashley on the black market to some really awful people. Both Ashley's and my jaws dropped. We were shocked. What on earth? That's not all. They said they wanted to sell you to Juniper. They plan to fake your deaths in a car accident and make it look like your body's burned up in flames so there's no evidence. They thought they'd make a lot of money from Ashley because she's young. I feel sick. They were so cold and heartless about everything, you guys. Like I didn't care at all that they were going to sell you to such twisted people. That's why I had a panic attack. I'd never heard someone talk so openly about such a terrible crime. You can take a break if you need to, both of you. It's a lot to handle. Why are you crying? Aren't you sick, Mom? Of course I am, but right now, I'm just angry. They threatened to hurt you, Ashley, and for that, I will never forgive them. They said more awful things, but I'll spare us the details, at least for now. Camille, Ashley, and I felt extremely scared and sick. We couldn't believe we'd been living with criminals for a month. I was filled with rage. I wanted to confront them, but Camille stopped me. June, I understand you're upset, but you can't go down there and confront them. What do you mean? They threatened my daughter's life. I know, Juniper. I just don't think it's safe for you to confront them without a plan. You live with these people. Who knows what they might do if they feel threatened? You're right. We have an advantage because we know their plans. We can't lose that. So what's the plan? We're getting out of here. What? Yes. Pack your essentials and lock your door, just in case. I'll do the same. Camille, help Ashley while I call Nicholas. Okay, we'll be back when we're ready. Once they left the room, I couldn't hold back my tears. I felt so overwhelmed by everything I had heard, but I was relieved to know the truth, even if it was painful. I called Nicholas and told him everything. I explained how his parents had been treating us, the rude outburst towards Ashley, and the recordings with Camille's translations. I'm sure you'll understand what they mean. Camille didn't give all the details, but enough to know we're not safe here. I'm taking Ashley to Camille's house after I finish packing, but I had to tell you everything. I know it's a lot to take in. Yeah, that's a lot. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner about the other stuff. I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to upset you. Let me listen to the audio, okay? I'll get back to you. We ended the call, and I continued packing, keeping an eye on the window to see if Margaret and Julian were still outside. When I finished packing, Camille and Ashley returned to my room. Just then, I received a call from Nicholas. He sounded extremely upset. Who wouldn't be after finding out their parents were criminals? He said we needed to leave immediately and that he'd meet us at Camille's place. We quietly got into the car parked in the garage and drove off. Margaret and Julian saw us leaving and called me, but I ignored the phone. Once we arrived at Camille's house, I called the police and directed them to Margaret and Julian's house. 30 minutes later, Nicholas arrived at Camille's place. We hugged and cried for a while Camille updated us on the police raid. The police had arrested Margaret and Julian. Nicholas explained that before coming to Camille's, he had stopped at the police station to give them the evidence I had sent digitally. With the evidence, it was easier for the police to handle the case. Although we weren't there to see it, I'm sure Margaret and Julian were shocked as the police stormed into our home. They were swiftly arrested due to the serious crimes they were accused of. The once proud couple now stood exposed as the criminals they truly were. News of their arrest quickly spread throughout the community, causing shock and disbelief among our acquaintances and neighbors. It was surreal to experience such a dramatic event in our ordinary lives. The revelation of their involvement in human trafficking shocked the town, destroying the image of respectability they had carefully crafted over the years. The legal proceedings were difficult, but the evidence I gathered helped build a strong case against them. Their actions were exposed in court, leaving no doubt about their guilt. The jury, horrified by their crimes, unanimously found them guilty on multiple charges related to human trafficking and conspiracy. As the judge delivered the verdict, there was a sense of relief and satisfaction in the courtroom. Margaret and Julian, once respected by Nicholas, Ashley, and me, now faced the consequences of their actions. They were sentenced to long prison terms and would also face trial in France, where laws regarding such crimes are stricter. This meant we wouldn't see them for a long time, and given their ages, they would likely spend the rest of their lives behind bars. They were considered a serious threat to our family, and their sentences ensured they would be kept away from society. Good riddance. Their arrest and conviction made national news, serving as a warning to others who thought they could commit such crimes without consequences. It was a victory for justice and a reminder that everyone is accountable under the law. While the legal process dealt with their crimes, Ashley, Nicholas, and I focused on healing and rebuilding our lives. The betrayal by Margaret and Julian left lasting scars, especially for Nicholas. But we stood together, supporting each other as we navigated the aftermath of their arrest and worked to overcome the trauma we had endured. Our bond grew stronger through it all. Ashley, how are you feeling these days? You've shown incredible strength through everything, I asked, breaking the heavy silence that filled the room. Ashley took a moment to gather her thoughts before responding. her eyes reflecting a mixture of resilience and vulnerability. Honestly, Mom, some days are still really tough. But overall, I'm feeling better. Therapy has helped a lot, and expressing myself through art has been therapeutic. I still have moments of fear and doubt, but I'm learning to cope with them. Nicholas reached out, gently squeezing Ashley's hand in support. We're so proud of you, Ashley. You've handled this with such courage and grace. Remember, we're always here for you, no matter what. I nodded in agreement, feeling a swell of pride and love for my daughter. Yes, Ashley, we're here to support you every step of the way. We've come a long way, but there's still healing to be done. Let's continue to lean on each other and move forward together. With renewed determination and a shared sense of resilience, we embrace the challenges ahead, knowing that as a family, we could overcome anything. It hasn't been easy, Mom, but I'm making progress. Art has become my safe place, a way to express and let go of the pain, and therapy is helping me see things differently and trust again. We're so proud of you, Ashley. Your strength inspires us every day. We're here for you always. That's right, sweetheart. We're in this together, supporting and lifting each other up as we move forward. We've come a long way, and our future looks brighter. Thank you both. I don't know where I'd be without your love and support. We've faced challenges, but we've grown stronger. Now we have the chance to take back our lives and make a positive difference. Absolutely, my love. We've faced the darkest of times, but we've emerged stronger than ever. We won't let others' actions define us. Together, we'll build a future full of love, happiness, and fulfillment. We're a family, unbreakable. We've proven that. Let's keep supporting each other, healing, and building the life we deserve. We're stronger than ever, and we'll embrace every opportunity. The conversation was filled with a mix of emotions, from past pain to hopeful anticipation. As we continued our journey, we found comfort in each other, knowing we could overcome anything together and create a life of love and joy. Several years ago, I got married, and with my husband came my sister-in-law, Sophia. I hoped we could get along well, but it felt like I was the only one who wanted that. Sophia didn't seem interested in getting closer to me. Instead, she often acted like she was better than me and only cared about my money. One day, Sophia's true feelings came out during a phone call. She said coldly, "If you're looking for your bank book, forget it. I have it." Why are you surprised? Isn't your money basically mine too? So even if I spend it all, it shouldn't be a problem. I was frustrated and replied, "My money is mine. It's not yours." She just laughed and said, "Do you really believe that? That's funny." Since that incident, I believed that making peace with Sophia was impossible, and I started thinking of ways to get back at her. When I was ready to put my plan into action, my sister-in-law smugly said, "Once you marry into our family, isn't it natural to think everything you have now belongs to the family?" I was shocked and could only mumble, "That's not true." Actually, I had already bought a new car using the money from the bank account. Instead of withdrawing a large amount at once, which would raise suspicions, I carefully withdrew $3,000 multiple times using an ATM. There was no money left in the account, so Sophia could forget about it. Sophia laughed loudly, clearly feeling victorious. Seeing her in such a good mood, I decided to strike back. "Then I'll give up on the bank book and the money inside it, as you say." "What are you talking about?" she asked, confused. "You told me earlier to forget about the bank book and the money, right?" "Yes, I did. But you're the one who needs to let go. Can you guess why?" "Isn't it obvious? The bank book is in your name. Have you checked whose name is on it?" "Of course it was kept on a shelf in your house, so it must be in your name," Sophia said, sounding irritated. But I didn't back down. Her slip of the tongue was a big advantage for me now. "Sister-in-law, it seems you misunderstood something." Then I started to explain everything slowly and carefully to Sophia. "My name is Emma. Let me take you back to when I married my husband, Lucas. His family runs a metal processing business. His dad is the boss, and his mom handles office work. Lucas works hard as an employee there. It's a pretty big company with many talented people, including Lucas. I really want to support his family's business, but in the midst of all this, I noticed my mother-in-law looking exhausted. I started to wonder if the office workload was overwhelming her. So I decided to ask her directly about her health and how things were going at work. "Mom, are you okay? You seem tired." "Thank you for asking. Actually, 2 of our office staff recently quit, So I've been handling most of the work by myself, she replied. Wow, that sounds really tough, managing everything alone. I exclaimed, surprised by the workload. As my mother-in-law explained in detail, I learned that the two staff members had left because they got married, and finding new people to hire was proving difficult. There also wasn't a clear plan for hiring new staff. So I decided to offer a suggestion. I have experience in administrative work. If there's any way I can help, even a little bit, I'd be happy to support. My mother-in-law's face lit up. That would be incredibly helpful. And don't worry, we'll make sure to compensate you fairly. Thank you so much in advance. After that conversation, I started playing a more active role in my father-in-law's company. My experience in administration came in handy, and my father-in-law was grateful for my help. My husband, Lucas, was always looking out for me. He made sure I wasn't feeling too stressed balancing work and household chores. You only have to help until we hire a new clerk. I don't want you to overwork yourself, Lucas said one day. Thank you, Lucas, but I get along well with your mom, and compared to my previous job, the environment here is much better. So I don't plan on quitting anytime soon, I replied. Lucas respected my decision. Then, one day, my mother-in-law suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, I completely forgot to go to the post office. That's worrying. Would you like me to go for you?" I offered kindly, and a smile brightened her face. "No need, Emma. I was planning to do some shopping anyway, so I'll go," she said, rushing off. In the short time she was gone, it felt almost planned when my sister-in-law showed up at the office. "Hey, Emma, long time no see." Sophia's voice sounded friendly. "Sophia, did you need something?" "Actually, I was just passing by and thought I'd say hi," Sophia said with a sweet smile. "I've heard rumors that she's currently working in a restaurant since she doesn't have a full-time job. But I didn't know the details about her current situation. As I was considering asking Sophia about it, she suddenly turned to me. "Emma, I'm curious. Are you getting paid for working here?" "Yes, I do get paid for the administrative work I do, but it's not a lot. I initially wanted to help out without any payment, considering my role in the family. However, my father-in-law suggested that officially hiring me and paying a salary would be better for tax and management reasons, so I went along with it. But the salary I receive is just the minimum for someone new in an admin role, so it's not much. I wasn't sure how much Sophia knew about my salary, but from her attitude, it seemed like she was expecting something. "In that case, could you share some of it with me?" Sophia asked. Surprised, I asked, "Do you mean borrow money?" "That's not what I meant. I want you to give me part of your salary," Sophia demanded. "Give you part of my salary? I don't understand. Why would I do that?" I replied, trying to understand her intentions. "Don't make me repeat myself. Just give it to me now," Sophia insisted, her expression turning serious as she approached me. Then she noticed a small safe on the table. "It's in there, isn't it?" she asked, reaching for the safe. Panicked, I blurted out, "Wait, that contains important funds for the company." "Company funds? But this is our father's company, right? So technically, that money belongs to him. There shouldn't be a problem with me borrowing some of it," Sophia argued back. But that wasn't the point. I tried to stop her, but Sophia was determined. In the end, she forced open the safe and took out some bills. "I'll be taking this," she said. "Give it back. How will I explain this to everyone?" I pleaded. "That's your problem. You'll figure it out." "Goodbye," Sophia said, whistling as she left. I stood there in shock, watching her go. I wasn't sure how much she took, but it didn't seem like a lot. I needed to check what was left. I looked at the ledger and then checked the safe. I was short $170. Sophia had taken two $50 bills and three $10 bills. My heart raced as I checked my wallet, but there were only a few $5 bills. This isn't nearly enough. What do I do? I felt frustrated and desperate. I thought about telling my mother-in-law the truth, but I hesitated because of the potential backlash from Sophia. Fear of revenge stopped me from confessing. With no solutions in sight, my mother-in-law returned from shopping. "I'm back, Emma. You look upset. Is everything all right?" she asked, showing concern for me. "Mother-in-law, there's something I need to tell you." I started preparing myself to reveal what happened. "You don't need to apologize. Sophia has caused trouble before. Dealing with her has been tough. I'm sorry she put you through this. I'd appreciate it if the money Sophia took could be deducted from my salary," I said. "Don't worry about it. I'll handle it as her mother, but I have a small request for you. She asked me to record Sophia's voice next time she came to the office. The method was simple. Use a smartphone or digital recorder to capture the atmosphere and conversation. But why do we need to record her? I asked. Sophia is an adult now. I believe she needs to face proper consequences for what she did. My mother-in-law said. Indeed, that's true. But to make sure she doesn't repeat her mistakes, we need to show her the significance and impact of her actions. I agreed. After our conversation, I decided to always wear a voice recorder. A week later, while my mother-in-law was out, Sophia showed up at the office again. Hey, how's it going, Emma? She greeted me. Why are you here again? I asked nervously, discreetly starting the voice recorder. I'm a bit short on cash right now, so I thought I'd borrow some from you, she said. I'm definitely not lending you any money, I replied firmly. Why? You lent it to me before, didn't you? Sophia argued. That was you taking it without permission, I reminded her. But you managed to cover for it later, didn't you? She countered. I couldn't admit that I had informed my mother-in-law about what happened. If I did, Sophia would likely leave immediately, and I wouldn't be able to gather the evidence my mother-in-law requested. Thinking carefully about my response, I said, You found a way to fix the situation, didn't you? Can you lend me some money today? That's not possible, I replied firmly. You married into this family, right? As a daughter-in-law, can you go against your in-laws' wishes? Sophia's argument surprised me with its irrationality. Enough with the excuses. Give me the key to the safe. Sophia slammed the desk in anger. Just then, I heard my mother-in-law's footsteps approaching from outside. What are you doing, Sophia? My mother-in-law's voice startled Sophia. Oh, Mom. You haven't found a proper job, and now you're asking for money from your sister-in-law. Aren't you even a bit ashamed? Well. What exactly are you thinking, Sophia? Quit bothering me. I may not have a full-time job, but I'm working part-time and managing just fine. At your age, still relying on part-time work? Aren't you embarrassed? Your friends have careers, families, and you're still. It's my life, and I'll live it how I want. And I have a great partner. Sophia interrupted, clearly agitated, before storming out of the room. After she left, I felt relieved. Mother-in-law, I appreciate your understanding, I said sincerely. Don't worry. Now that Sophia knows, she must be feeling some regret. My mother-in-law reassured me with a smile. But despite her reassurance, I still felt anxious. I was worried that Sophia might return with more demands. One day, when I visited my mother-in-law's house, she showed me a piece of paper. I got an invitation to Sophia's wedding recently, she said. It was indeed a wedding invitation. The groom's name was Leo. I didn't recognize the name, but my mother-in-law seemed to know him and looked somewhat worried. Leo is actually the son of the factory manager, she explained. Huh, he's the factory manager's son. That's unexpected, I said. The factory manager was someone my father-in-law had worked closely with and highly respected. Is the factory manager discussing anything specific about his son's marriage? I asked. Well, it turns out the factory manager had no idea about the marriage and was genuinely surprised when we told him, my mother-in-law explained. I see. Well, since it's already happened, I suppose we should accept it with a congratulatory spirit. There's no point in opposing it now, my mother-in-law said, her expression already accepting the situation. After the wedding, my sister-in-law probably told my mother-in-law, see, I did find a proper groom. Congratulations, Sophia, my mother-in-law said with a smile. Are you relieved now? More importantly, what are your plans for your new life together? What's your plan for the future? When my mother-in-law asked this with a serious expression, my sister-in-law seemed to be at a loss for words. Have you decided on a new place to live yet? My mother-in-law asked. That's something we'll think about in the future, Sophia replied vaguely. I thought as much. For now, you should start by living in our apartment. We're planning to move to a new place, so you can have this house. Consider it our final support for you. If you need to, find part-time jobs and support yourself. My mother-in-law said. All right, I understand, Sophia replied, looking displeased. I was surprised by her attitude. She should have been grateful for the house she received. Most of all, I felt sorry for my mother-in-law, who seemed pained and hurt. My husband, Lucas, seemed to feel the same way and quickly suggested something to my mother-in-law. If that's the case, why don't you come live with us? Lucas asked. It's okay. I've already discussed and decided on our new residence with your father, my mother-in-law replied. Are you sure that's fine? Well, just until we move into the new house, can we leave some of our belongings at your place? Lucas asked. Of course that's fine, my mother-in-law replied, which made me feel relieved. I thought once my sister-in-law got married, everything would be calm. But problems started soon after she moved into her new home. The day after they moved in, my mother-in-law called us early in the morning while we were getting ready for work. Why are you calling so early, Mom? Is everything okay? Emma, I hate to bother you, but I need to ask something. Is Sophia with you? My parents-in-law plan to take a short break from their house and stay in a hotel for a few days. During this time, my sister-in-law and her husband were supposed to move into their house. Some of the furniture and stuff from there were temporarily stored in our house. My mother-in-law was worried about how things were going for her daughter, so she decided to visit their house that morning to check. But when she got there, she couldn't find any sign of her daughter or her husband. Since they helped move some stuff from our house to yours yesterday, I thought they might be staying with you. No, they came back home. Then where could they be? Maybe they went on their honeymoon. That's possible. If you find out anything, please tell me. After that, she hung up. Later, I told my husband what happened, but he didn't know anything either. I didn't think I needed to do anything else. So I decided to wait quietly for my sister-in-law to contact us. But as days passed, not hearing from her became worrying. My mother-in-law started thinking about reporting her as missing to the police. While we were discussing this in the living room, she suddenly said, I'll go get the bank book for a moment. Why? I want to withdraw some money just in case. If we have to search for them, there might be expenses, she said, sounding worried. I understood her thinking ahead and stayed quiet in the room. Suddenly, I heard her shocked voice from the next room. What? I can't find the bank book. My husband Lucas and I rushed to the adjacent room. Inside, my mother-in-law looked flustered in front of a shelf. Did you keep your bank book here? I asked, and she nodded rapidly, confused. Isn't this the shelf we moved last time? I remembered that we moved things from her house in 2 stages. First, the day after my sister-in-law's wedding, and then just a few days later, before she disappeared. The shelf in question was from the first move, but neither my husband nor I remembered touching it. Neither of us touched or checked that shelf. But are you sure you left it here? My husband's doubt annoyed her, and they started arguing. I stood there confused, watching them, when suddenly my phone rang. The unexpected call in this tense situation startled me. Reluctantly answering the phone, I asked, What's wrong? You sound upset. It was my sister-in-law. Hearing her voice surprised me. Raising a hand to interrupt the argument, I said, Sis, is that really you? Both Lucas and my mother-in-law stopped arguing, turning to me with surprise. Turning back to the phone, I asked again, It is you, right? My sister-in-law's answer was short and annoyed. Who else would it be? Where are you? We've been really worried about you. But my sister-in-law brushed off the question, saying, It doesn't matter where I am. I have something to ask. From our conversation, it seemed she took the bank book and used the money to buy a car. That money belonged to me, she even said outright. Angry at her selfish comments, I told her everything that had happened. Mom's bank book is missing, and it's causing a lot of trouble. What? Mom's bank book is missing. Sophia sounded genuinely surprised. Whose name is on the bank book you have? Is it under my name? Just a moment. I could hear her rummaging through things on the other end. She probably mistook my bank book for my mother-in-law's. But my mother-in-law hadn't spent much recently and hadn't realized it was missing. It had been over a week since Sophia took the bank book, so the money inside was probably already spent. After a while, a flustered voice said, Wait, is this Mom's bank book? I knew it, I said quietly. Suddenly, my phone was snatched from my hand. My mother-in-law looked angry as she held my phone firmly. Sophia, I've heard everything. What? Mom, why? I was worried about you, then I got a call from you, but how did you hear my conversation? Because Emma had her phone on speaker. I had put the phone on speaker so my husband and mother-in-law could hear what Sophia was saying. They heard everything, including that she used my bank book to buy a car. What were you thinking? That's so irresponsible. My mother-in-law's voice filled the room. Sophia apologized, sounding regretful. I'm really sorry. using company funds without permission and taking someone's bank book. I messed up. Please forgive me. I'll be more careful from now on. It's too late for that. Come home now and explain. Yes, I understand. Sophia's shocked voice was interrupted by a loud thud from the background. Hey Sophia, are you okay? My mother-in-law asked, but there was no reply. After a moment, Sophia's frantic voice came back. Help me at the convenience store parking lot. Then the call ended suddenly. We could guess what happened. Sophia might have hit the gas instead of the brake and driven the car into the store while on the call. Soon after, the police reported that Sophia's car crashed into the store. Both Sophia and her husband were in the car. Luckily, they weren't seriously hurt, but the aftermath was messy. It turned out Sophia didn't have car insurance, so they had to pay for all the repairs themselves. My in-laws were furious. They went to get Sophia right away. Sophia's husband's parents were also angry, especially his father, who manages a factory. He scolded Sophia harshly, saying, just because you're part of this family now, do you think everything should be handed to you? Those were the same words Sophia used with me. Just telling my mother-in-law wasn't the end of my plan. I made sure Sophia's father-in-law, the manager, heard a recording of the conversation too. With Sophia's own words on record, she couldn't deny anything. The manager was even tougher on them. He ordered Sophia and her husband, since you're broke, you'll work for me and hand over your earnings. After that, they had no choice but to work at the factory under strict supervision. It was the best option financially. My in-laws kept a close eye on them, both at work and at home. They worked all day and lived under scrutiny afterward. Feeling overwhelmed, Sophia eventually approached me at the factory, crying, asking for help. I'll do anything. Please forgive me. Anything? Then work sincerely and pay back what you took from us. Seeing Sophia so desperate, breaking down in front of me, was unexpected. Her state showed how worn out she was mentally. It's a moment I won't forget. Part of me thought, you deserve this, but seeing her like that, I felt a twinge of sympathy, but she brought it on herself. Changing the subject, my life took a big turn shortly after. I decided to quit my job. I heard they were hiring new staff, and I found out I was pregnant. I want to focus on my new life with my baby and make sure I get enough rest. After my father's funeral, our family got together to talk about the inheritance. My father had been a respected major shareholder in a company. During the meeting, my brother-in-law Jason suddenly spoke up. My wife Emily, your eldest daughter, should get the stocks and a total of $5 million, he argued firmly. As my brother-in-law and sister seemed eager about getting a large sum of money, the lawyer, with a bit of surprise, calmly explained, Emily doesn't legally have the right to the inheritance. My name is John. I'm a 42-year-old salaried worker, living with my wonderful wife and 2 children. My father was well known as a major shareholder in a company and was still working at 78. I have an older sister named Emily, who has always caused our parents a lot of worry with her repeated troublesome behavior. Even though she is middle-aged, she hasn't settled into a stable career and lives a selfish life. I've always felt uneasy and frustrated with my sister's actions, so I keep my distance. When Emily turned 50, she suddenly brought home a young man and announced, I'm getting married. The man, Alex, was much younger than my sister. While he was attractive, he seemed irresponsible, which didn't impress me. Emily boldly demanded money from our father for her wedding, which she quickly spent. She shamelessly asked for more money, causing our father more stress. It's my inheritance anyway, so what's wrong with using it now? She said defiantly. I watched my sister's behavior coldly. Not long after her marriage, our father suddenly fell ill while playing golf and passed away quietly a few days later. Losing him so suddenly was a deep sorrow for me. His unexpected death shocked his many friends, and the phone kept ringing nonstop. Telling myself there was no time for tears, I took charge of the funeral arrangements for my grieving mother. As usual, my sister left home and refused to help with the funeral. Exhausted after the funeral, my mother and I barely had time to rest when the lawyer came to our house the next day to discuss the inheritance. We already knew that our father had left a will. Unaware of this, my sister Emily and her husband Jason, who seemed oddly confident, barged into the discussion and made a shocking statement. Jason, looking triumphant, said, The stocks and the $5 million inheritance will go to my wife, your eldest daughter, so don't think about using it as you please, he boasted confidently. My mother and I were bewildered by this absurd statement, at a loss for words. Jason, looking smug, exclaimed, "All right, Emily, with this, we'll be rich too." His excitement was barely containable. Far from mourning my father's death, my brother-in-law's jubilant demeanor shocked the lawyer. Emily, looking dissatisfied, questioned, "What kind of reaction is that?" The lawyer, facing them seriously, clarified, "I'm sorry, Emily, but you have no legal right to the inheritance." This news left both my sister and brother-in-law stunned. Emily, visibly angry, raised her voice. "That can't be true. Emily is the eldest daughter, after all," Jason said, revealing his high hopes for the inheritance, a clear hint of greed in his eyes. "Were you not aware? Emily is not the biological daughter of the deceased." Upon hearing this, Emily's face changed dramatically, and she turned to our mother with a questioning gaze. "Mom?" At that moment, my mother looked conflicted, as if she couldn't find the right words to say. I had always known that Emily wasn't biologically related to our father, but it seemed she was completely unaware of this fact. Confused, Emily began to shake our mother's shoulders, pleading in a desperate voice, "Mom, what does this mean?" Unperturbed by the shaking, my mother calmly yet firmly replied, "Emily, you are the daughter of my previous husband." As she quietly disclosed the significant fact, Emily, who had always tormented me by saying, "Dad loves me the most," now wore a face of utter disbelief. Suddenly, Jason interjected, "But if there was an adoption, she would have rights to the inheritance, right?" "That's correct, isn't it, Emily?" he asked, seeking confirmation from my sister. "Yes, that should be the case," Emily replied. However, in front of Emily, our mother slowly shook her head. "No, Emily, we never went through an adoption," my mother stated quietly. At her words, both my sister and brother-in-law once again wore faces of shock. Emily, shaking with anger, cried out, "How could this be? I am the oldest daughter of this family, and Dad even said so." Emily yelled at me, filled with anger. Her voice shaking, she continued, "Why do you get to control all of our family's money?" Her words made me furious, and I quickly shot back, "Have you ever thought about how much you made Dad spend? Do you still have something to say?" I said angrily, "Shut up. I'm the daughter of this house. I have every right to the money." "Spending money on a daughter is what parents are supposed to do," she insisted. I was shocked and let out a deep sigh. Normally, spending money on a daughter isn't wrong. But the problem was how much my sister made Dad spend on her debts and other expenses. Then the lawyer, who had been quietly watching, finally spoke up. "How about we let Emily see the will too?" "A will? What are you talking about?" "I don't know anything about a will," Emily responded, confused. Emily's ignorance about the will was her own fault. Dad wanted to discuss the will with the whole family and had asked everyone to be there when it was written. But she ignored this and went out to do other things. When I mentioned this, Jason couldn't hide his anger and glared at Emily. "Why did you do that, Emily? It was important." "So what will you all do?" At this question, my sister and brother-in-law looked at each other and agreed to hear the will. The lawyer then read aloud Dad's will, which clearly named my mother and me as the only inheritors of the entire estate. The will also explained why Emily was not legally adopted. It seemed Dad had originally wanted to accept Emily as a formal family member, but the will detailed his disappointment in her mean actions towards me since childhood and her increasing wastefulness as she grew older. No way. Emily was shocked and speechless. Faced with the reality of having no inheritance rights, she seemed unable to recover from the shock. "What does this mean, Emily? Were you deceiving me, making me believe we'd become rich?" Jason demanded. My mother and sister were stunned, but I wasn't surprised. Jason's dishonest behavior regarding money had always been obvious. He might have married Emily just for her money. "Emily, come back here until you have money." "Wait, Jason, don't be so cruel. I believed we'd be rich together. I'm so disappointed in you," Emily pleaded. Jason roughly pushed past Emily and left the room. Left behind, Emily glared at us with a face full of anger. "Mom, why didn't you adopt me?" she demanded. My mother, struggling to find words, managed to say, "Well, that is why." "Why does Mom get the inheritance? I should have rights too. It's unfair because of Mom's lack of action. Don't you think it's terrible?" Emily cried. My mother quietly murmured, "Emily, it's unfair. Too cruel." Emily's cries, with her hair disheveled, were intense enough to scare anyone. But the lawyer remained calm, as if it were a normal day. "Why do you get everything? Why nothing for me?" Emily demanded. "Because I'm Dad's biological child," I said. As soon as I said that, Emily, in a fit of rage, reached out to hit me. "It would have been better if you never existed," she screamed. I thought that even if I hadn't been there, Dad would have made the same decision because of Emily's behavior. But before I could argue back, the lawyer quietly intervened. "Emily, please refrain from such actions. Otherwise, I will have to contact the police," he warned her gently. Emily, startled by the mention of the police, calmed down. With a history of minor crimes like shoplifting, she was sensitive to the mention of the authorities. My mother, holding back tears, tried to speak again, but Emily clicked her tongue in frustration and left the room. About 6 months later, the inheritance process was smoothly completed. Emily and Jason initially resisted strongly, but the lawyer's skillful handling left them little room to interfere. Eventually, my mother did give Emily a small amount of money, but it wasn't my place to comment on it. Frustratingly, Emily and Jason then disappeared without a trace. Their blatant greed left our relatives shocked and disappointed. One day, my wife suggested we take my mother and daughter out for a pleasant meal. Since losing Dad, my mother had been down, but spending time with her beloved granddaughter brightened her up. "Mom, why don't you come and live with us?" I proposed to my mother, but she hesitated. "Well, Emily might come by occasionally. Emily only comes here to beg for money. You shouldn't indulge her," I replied. My mother's hesitation was understandable. Despite her issues, Emily was her irreplaceable daughter. If we went to our family home, there was a chance Emily would cause trouble again. Understanding these concerns, I gave my mother some time to think as I drove her home. Surprisingly, there were lights on at the usually empty house. Thinking Emily might have returned, I parked the car cautiously in the garage. We got out of the car and started walking towards the entrance. Suddenly, a car rushed towards us. "Watch out," my daughter, who was leading the way, yelled instinctively. I threw myself to protect my wife, barely avoiding the car. "Ouch!" I groaned in pain. Fortunately, the car only grazed me, but I was thrown against a flower bed. The car eventually crashed into the garage entrance and came to a stop. My wife, with a worried expression, asked, "Are you okay?" "Dad," my mother trembled at the entrance, unable to speak due to surprise and concern. The situation was chaotic. I was rushed to the hospital by ambulance and ended up staying overnight. It turned out Jason was the one who caused the accident. He told the police he mistook the brake for the accelerator, but I wasn't convinced. During this time, Emily visited the hospital with my mother. While my mother was tending to flowers, Emily looked at me and said, "You're surprisingly tough, aren't you?" she muttered, seemingly disappointed. I thought to myself, just as I suspected, and provocatively responded, "If I had died in the accident, Mom would have inherited everything." Disappointed at my words, Emily clearly looked uneasy. "I know what you were expecting," I continued as Emily averted her eyes, looking down. "But you see, Mom intends to renounce her inheritance, so your hopes won't come to fruition." As I said this, Emily stared back at me in astonishment. It seemed unbelievable to her that someone would willingly give up what they could receive. "I have a wife and kids, so Mom says the inheritance should go to them. That's what a parent should do," I explained. "But that's," Emily started to object, her words trailing off. "I've made a will up early, following Dad's example. Unfortunately, the inheritance that I should have will no longer go to Mom." At these words, Emily shivered, unable to hide her agitation. Unable to conceal her anger, Emily raised her voice. "Give me a share. It's $5 million, isn't it?" When I said no firmly, Emily got really angry and grabbed my shirt. "You should give me half at least. I'm your real sister," she shouted. She kept yelling loudly about wanting half of the money we inherited, but I felt sorry for her. Being so greedy would have disappointed Dad. "Can't you see that?" I said calmly to her. Emily's face turned red quickly, and she tried to grab my throat. Just then, our mom came back into the room and yelled, "Emily, what are you doing?" When she heard our mom, the nurses came in and took Emily away. Mom seemed to want to protect Emily, but Emily left, saying mean things to her. "What did I do wrong raising her?" Mom said sadly. Not long after that, we found out that Mom had gotten sick. We felt sad seeing her get weaker, So we started helping out more with things like driving her places and doing chores. This seemed to make Emily even angrier. She might have found out from Mom or my wife when she asked for money. One day, Emily called me unexpectedly on my phone. "We'll take care of Mom from now on. You don't need to come anymore," she said. "What do you mean all of a sudden?" I asked. "I've already decided," she replied. I was worried about leaving Mom in Emily's care because Emily struggled with basic household tasks, let alone caring for someone who was sick. I quickly called Mom to understand what was going on. Surprisingly, Mom said Jason had experience taking care of people, and she felt okay for the time being. I felt relieved, but then Mom suddenly had to go to the hospital in an ambulance because of a mistake with her medicine dosage. We all rushed to the hospital and found Mom very weak. I asked my wife to stay with her and went back to our family home. When I got there, the house was a mess. Mom couldn't even cook her favorite meals anymore. The fridge was empty, and it seemed like Emily had fired the helper without telling anyone. I regretted expecting anything from Emily and felt angry. When I checked Mom's safe, a lot of money had been taken out of her bank account. Thankfully, the money from the inheritance was safe somewhere else. But the money Mom used for everyday things was almost all gone. I quickly gathered important documents like bank books, cards, and seals, and went back to the hospital to explain everything to Mom and figure out what to do next. "Emily has," Mom struggled to say. It seemed she didn't know about the money being taken out of her account, and she was shocked. When I mentioned the mistake with her medicine, Mom said Jason had prepared it, and her expression became even darker. "I think it's best if we don't let Emily back into the house," I told Mom. "John," Mom replied, looking confused. I explained my worries further. "I promised to take care of things, but the house is in such a mess." "Mom, you've lost a lot of weight. You must not have been eating well." Seeing her reaction, I gently suggested, "Mom, let's live together. Let's build a new house and stay there together." Mom started crying heavily at my words. But soon after, her condition got worse, and despite the doctor's efforts, she passed away. Heartbroken over what Emily did, I went back to the family home to get ready for Mom's funeral. I found out that all the valuable things were gone. It turned out Emily and her husband, who were having money problems, took them. Seeing the empty house, I felt shocked and angry. "We have to fix this, no matter what," I decided firmly. The day after Mom's funeral, I was supposed to meet Emily and the lawyer at the law office to talk about the inheritance. Emily, feeling superior, confidently said, "I have the right to Mom's inheritance, unfortunately for you." I couldn't help but laugh at her misunderstanding. She was making a big mistake. The lawyer opened the will, and as soon as we saw what was written, Emily's face turned pale with shock. "No. How could this happen?" Emily exclaimed. "The will clearly says you're not getting anything," the lawyer told Emily. Jason, furious, demanded, "What's that supposed to mean? She's her daughter. You can't fool us. Give us the inheritance now." He banged the table in anger. I calmly asked him, "Jason, did you do something to Mom?" "I didn't do anything," he replied dismissively. "Then why was her medication messed up?" I pressed, but Jason just brushed it off, saying, "That doesn't matter." "John, I can't believe I'm getting nothing from Mom's inheritance. What did you do?" "I can't pay my apartment rent now," Emily said. Her words shocked me. I realized Emily had assumed she'd get something, even though she didn't show up right after Mom died. Emily, desperate, asked the lawyer, "Is there really nothing for me?" The lawyer sighed deeply and said, "Yes, the will is clear." Then the lawyer explained the legal stuff about the mandatory share. It turned out that after taking away the money Emily had taken out and sold without permission, there wasn't much left in the inheritance. Actually, this was part of a plan I had talked about with the lawyer before. Emily was shocked and protested loudly. "There can't be so little." Mom and I had purposely not told Emily about this. In reality, most of Mom's stuff had been given to my daughters while she was alive, so there wasn't much left to inherit. But Emily didn't want to accept it and kept complaining. Like with Dad, I felt really angry with Emily, who only took from others without doing anything herself. It's so disrespectful to just take money when Mom thought you'd take care of her. Taking care of someone costs money, and you don't get that, I told her. "Then show me what you spent on Mom. If it's really necessary, I'll pay for it," Emily said. When I said that, Emily got shaky and her face changed. There's no proof. Without receipts, we can't agree to those expenses, I told her. While Emily was silent, Jason attempted to use a gentle tone to sway things his way. John, think about it. Your sister really needs help right now. Wouldn't it be good to lend a hand? I'm sorry, but I can't agree to that, I said firmly. Jason was shocked by my direct refusal and stayed quiet for a bit. I didn't hold back my feelings and openly admitted, honestly, I've been treated badly by my sister for a long time. I almost feel satisfied now. But you're siblings, right? Can't you try to work together a bit? If the plan we had made earlier had worked, Emily would have gotten all the inheritance, Jason said. What plan? I asked. Jason went on. It's Emily's fault things didn't work out. I was supposed to get a new car, but now I only have enough for repairs. Emily panicked and tried to stop him, but it was too late. That sounds like fraud, I said, seeing where it was going. What? That's against the law. We got permission to record this meeting beforehand, the lawyer explained. Jason went pale, realizing his mistake. I said firmly, I'll be taking legal action about what you just said. That's ridiculous. There's no proof. Jason protested. Proof? What you said is proof enough, I replied. Emily cried out in agony, shaking Jason. You fool. What do we do now? This is all your fault. As a result, Jason faced legal consequences, and his past wrongdoings came to light, leading to his arrest. Although Emily seemed to be involved too, she struggled to pay her apartment rent. When she asked relatives for help, they all said no. Meanwhile, I kept working steadily, not letting the situation affect me, and looked forward to small joys like stock dividends. It's like you're not wanted here. You should go. Even though my brother said mean things to me, my sister-in-law sitting next to me quietly squinted her eyes and smiled, enjoying my surprised face. When I looked at our mother, who I lived with for a long time, she sadly said, living with your brother and his wife, who went to a really good university and works at a top company, seems better than living with you, Linda. You always stay inside the house, she said calmly. My mother, sister-in-law, and brother didn't seem to realize how much I've helped with money and worked for our family. Even though it hurt, I said, okay, I'll go. Don't ask me for help again, and started packing my things. She watched me and sarcastically said with a smug smile, giving up so easily, Linda? But nobody knows who will have a harder time in the future. Ignoring this could cause problems. My name's Linda, and I've done really well with online businesses. My journey here was unexpected. Back in university, I thought I'd end up with a regular job at a typical company, but something changed everything during my second year. My dad got sick and needed someone to take care of him every day. My mom wasn't great at housework, so we hired caregivers. But they couldn't be there all the time, so my mom had to step in. Sometimes she ignored my dad's needs, telling him to wait. I had to help him out whenever this happened. Seeing this made me worry about the future. When I start working, who will take care of my dad? I couldn't rely on my mom alone. So I started looking into ways to make money from home. I studied online business stuff during university, using what I learned in economics. I teamed up with friends who knew about management and economics, and then with others who were good with computers. That's how we started our online business project. We had a nice office where staff could work if they found it hard to concentrate at home, or for new employees to learn the ropes. But personally, I hardly ever went there. My main workspace is at home, where I can be with my dad. I do most of my work there. One day, my dad asked me if I gave up on a full-time job for him, or if it was hard to find one after graduating. It made me emotional, but I explained how I've been running my online business since college. It's doing well, and I can work from home without any problems. My dad was proud of me and grateful for what I do. He said I've become a responsible adult, which meant a lot to me. I'm actually not the only child responsible for taking care of my father. I have an older brother named Tom, who's 2 years older than me. Tom tends to be selfish and doesn't often think about others. He's always been really smart and did great in school. After he graduated from a top university, he easily got a job at a really good company. When we found out about his job, we were surprised but happy for him. We all tried to reach out to congratulate him, but his response wasn't what we expected. He said he was starting a new life in the city and didn't plan to come back home. He wanted us to believe he was doing well on his own. Then he hung up the phone abruptly. Since that day, we couldn't get in touch with Tom at all. He cut off all communication with us, ignoring our calls and messages. Even though our dad had supported him financially through college and living on his own, Tom never seemed grateful and distanced himself from us. Both my dad and I felt shocked and disappointed by his behavior. We started to wonder if our mom was secretly talking to Tom. But even with Dad's health getting worse and needing care every day, Tom's complete silence showed he didn't care about his responsibilities as part of the family. Then one day we got some unexpected news from Mom. Tom called me out of the blue. He said he's thinking of marrying someone and asked if we could give them a wedding gift. He wants $99,000. Mom told Dad and me about this, looking a bit worried because of our finances. Mom mostly stays home except for her part-time job 3 days a week. She usually spends her salary on lunch and shopping with friends, so she doesn't save much. I was surprised that Mom wanted to give Tom so much money, especially since we hadn't heard from him in a long time. Dad was first calm but then got really mad. Why should we give him all that money when he hasn't even talked to us since he left home? He was upset with Mom, who looked unhappy and glanced at me for support. Mom tried to explain, but think about it, Tom's getting married. I want him to have a good life and maybe even give us grandchildren. It's what parents want. Please understand, she said calmly. The main reason I didn't go for a regular job was because of Mom, so it hurt to hear her say those things. Dad was also upset with Mom. Linda stays home to take care of me because you didn't help enough. I've supported Tom a lot, but he's never thanked me. How can you ask for such a big gift for him? That day, there were loud arguments between Mom and Dad. I listened from the next room, worried about Dad's health. Mom always favored my brother and praised him, but she didn't understand why I stayed home to care for Dad. It made me really sad. After Mom left to go out for dinner, Dad said to me, "Linda, thank you for always being here for me." "It's okay, Dad. I've known for a long time that Mom favors Tom. I'm used to it. I know I've asked a lot of you. I wish I could do more to help you. Dad, you've done so much for me. You've supported my education and always encouraged me. If it wasn't for you, I might not have started my online business." My father's smile brought me some comfort, but I couldn't understand why Mom, who had such a caring father, acted so selfishly. And my brother, who hadn't talked to us for years, suddenly asking for a big wedding gift was hard to swallow. But the most shocking thing happened shortly after. One morning, I found my father wasn't moving. I called an ambulance, but it was too late. He had passed away. Many people came to his funeral to pay their respects, showing how loved he was. Normally, the wife would arrange the funeral, but Mom says she was too busy and left it all to me. She was always on her phone, seeming more concerned about that than about Dad's passing. I felt angry and unsupported. I focused on arranging the funeral to give Dad a proper send-off. Then something surprising happened. My brother showed up at the funeral with a woman in a flashy dress. He was dressed casually, which wasn't right for the occasion. Everyone was shocked, but Mom greeted him with a smile. "I'm glad you're here, Tom. Now your father's inheritance will be ours," Mom boldly stated. The atmosphere in the hall changed completely after Mom's sudden statement. Everyone was shocked and confused. Honestly, I don't think Linda should expect any inheritance. She's been at home taking care of Dad, Tom said loudly with a hint of sarcasm. I was surprised and sighed deeply. He must have known about our family situation and Dad's health from Mom. But Mom seemed to ignore the fact that I contributed a lot to our family's finances and whether there was actually any inheritance from Dad, who needed care. Dad used to have a good job, but making such comments at a funeral was disrespectful. The funeral felt gloomy and tense. "Should we leave now, Tom? We'll get the inheritance anyway," Mom said, pulling on his arm. As soon as I saw the woman with my brother, I knew she was his wife. She had a similar vibe to Tom, and I figured she must have a personality like his to marry him. I wished they would leave soon. Surprisingly, even Mom seemed to agree with them. "Shall we go get sushi?" she said, and the three of them left. Other relatives were also surprised. Some spoke out in shock, but I suggested, "Let's stay composed for Dad's sake." I kept my irritation to myself and carried on with the funeral. Returning home, I found a messy dining table with 3 boxes of sushi, likely ordered for delivery. From the living room came the sound of voices and laughter. Mom, Tom, and his wife Jessica were having a good time, drinking. "Hey, you're late, Linda. Can you make some snacks and grab more alcohol?" my brother asked. I was shocked by their insensitivity, especially during Dad's funeral. It seemed they didn't realize their behavior was wrong, even with the shocked looks from other relatives. Mom, who should have corrected them, was joining in their laughter, making me feel justified in staying. I wondered if they would have even bothered with a proper funeral if I wasn't there. So I told them, "There's no inheritance for you." I refused to get more drinks or snacks for them. Tom, now drunk, got upset. "What do you mean, Linda? You've always been at home, causing trouble for Dad. It's only fair we use his assets." Considering that Tom relied on Dad for all his college expenses, I couldn't understand why he felt entitled to Dad's assets. It frustrated me to see him act like he didn't owe Dad anything. "Isn't this house Dad's?" Tom asked. "As the eldest son, it should be mine. Why is Linda, who does nothing all day, living here?" Mom and Tom seemed to agree. The warmth Mom used to have for me was gone. "This house is mine," Tom said firmly. "I want Linda out." His wife didn't seem bothered by this. Mom spoke next. "I feel more comfortable living with my son and his wife, who have done well in life, than with you, Linda." They didn't realize how much I contributed to the house. I felt sad and disappointed. I sighed and decided to speak up. "I'll leave. Please don't ask anything of me anymore." As I packed my things in my room, I heard my sister-in-law mocking me. "She's really poor, don't you think?" They all laughed at me, but I just smiled bitterly to myself. Yes, right now, I might seem like the most miserable one. But there's something they don't know. This house has been legally mine since Dad was alive. He entrusted it to me, even though Mom still lives here and might say she spent most of her life here. Legally, it's mine. However, seeing her cold behavior during Dad's funeral made me think about what to do with the house. I felt tired of our relationship and saw her presence as a burden. Living alone in this big house would be lonely, and maintaining it would be hard, so I decided to sell it. Seeing Mom and my brother's family enjoying my situation without knowing my decision made me feel pity for them. Expecting inheritance from Dad seems ridiculous to me. Before my mom got sick, she had a stable income. But when her health declined, she couldn't work anymore. So she used her savings to hire someone to help her every day. She spent her savings on daily expenses, and even when Dad got sick and needed more care, Mom kept spending like usual, so her savings dwindled. When I realized Dad's savings were gone, I started giving $3,000 each month to help with household expenses. Mom did the housework but wasn't good at managing money. When Mom went shopping, she often bought expensive things impulsively, even if we didn't need them. She didn't pay attention to sales or budgeting. She used the money she earned from her part-time job for her hobbies and fun stuff. She also took more money than needed for daily expenses to enjoy herself. Dad felt bad about it. In the end, the money he saved was spent by Mom. As I prepared to leave the house, I withdrew all the money I had been giving for household expenses. I couldn't bear to let my mom keep using it. The next day, something unexpected happened. "Did you take the household money, Linda?" Mom's voice came through the phone one quiet morning. She sounded surprised and a bit upset. "Mom, what household money?" "Dad's savings. Those were all gone when I checked." "Did you forget that you used them up?" "I left the ledger on the table. It shows how you kept taking money from Dad's savings." Dad knew about it too. After his savings ran out, I was the one giving $3,000 every month to support the house. I heard Mom rushing around, probably looking for the ledger I mentioned. Then I heard the living room door open. "Mom, what's going on? Wasn't there supposed to be inheritance after Dad passed? Did you use it all?" My brother sounded angry and disappointed. His wife's voice echoed in the background. "I can't believe this, Mom. Did you really call us back home expecting us to support you financially? That's really harsh." "No, that's not what I meant." It was clear Mom had called them back because of the inheritance. Hearing this, I knew they wouldn't trust her anymore. We left our stable jobs to come here, expecting to get Dad's inheritance. How are we supposed to live now? "What, Tom? I didn't know you made such a big decision." This was all news to me too. My brother used to have a good job, but I wasn't really bothered by their decision because it didn't affect me directly. "And what about the $2,700 you've been getting every month?" My brother asked. "Mom, you kept saying Linda wasn't working, right?" Mom suddenly looked at me with shock and guilt. "What? Linda? What's going on?" she asked. I smiled a little and said, "You should look into remote work. These days, you can have a job without leaving home. I never told them about my successful online business. I knew if they knew, they'd start relying on me. Worse, they might interfere with my business. Please come back. Let's be a family again. Mom's voice was small, as if she hadn't blamed me at all. But I had no intention of going back. Mom, you just want to rely on my money, right? And about the house. While Dad was alive, I took over ownership because of the property taxes. It's mine now. I don't plan to live there anymore, so I asked my uncle, who runs a real estate agency, to sell it. He was really mad about what happened at Dad's funeral, so if my brother and his family stay there, he'll kick them out. Losing our home was something I never imagined. Mom sounded shocked, and I could hear my brother's voice on the phone asking, "What's going on?" Feeling too overwhelmed to answer my brother's question, I decided to leave everything to Uncle. He promised to handle things and explain everything to Mom and my brother's family, so I trusted him. Goodbye, I'm cutting ties with you and Mom. I won't be using this phone anymore. Farewell. With that, I ended the call. I imagined their surprise and felt a brief sadness. It would be hard for them to find me. I had plans to move abroad, a dream I never shared, not even with Dad. I always wanted to live in a warm, tropical country with a diverse culture. When Mom and my brother's family asked me to leave the house after Dad died, I saw it as the perfect chance to make my dream come true. After being evicted from the house, I immediately started packing and searching for a place abroad. I wanted somewhere quiet near the beach, so I focused on finding the perfect spot. Now I'm living alone in a short-term rental apartment close to the city center with good transportation links, which is great for getting ready for my move abroad. With my brother, his wife, and Mom busy looking for a new place to live after the eviction, they probably haven't had time to think about me. By the time I heard they were cramped in a small apartment, taking up part-time jobs to get by, I was already settling into my new life abroad. My uncle hired a detective agency to discreetly monitor them. They found out my family was struggling financially, still spending beyond their means and even borrowing money from risky lenders. If things continue like this, they might face even more trouble with debt collectors. I've cut ties with them and avoided getting involved. It's unlikely I'll ever see them again after everything that's happened. So there's this moment where Jessica suddenly realizes something about her sister. She thinks her sister is kind of sad and unlucky, and then she gets this idea. What's the idea? Well, just wait and see. Jessica, wearing a fancy wedding dress, starts talking to everyone around. She even grabs a microphone. Then she says loudly to all the guests, "Does anyone want to marry my sister? She's not super smart, and she's getting older, you know?" After saying this, Jessica's sister gives her a sneaky smile. But she doesn't realize how rude Jessica's words are. The room suddenly feels weird, and people start whispering. Some of them look at Jessica with disapproval, but Jessica doesn't notice any of this. She grabs the microphone again and tells her sister, "Come on, you have to make yourself sound better. There are lots of good-looking doctors here. Don't you get what you've done wrong?" Suddenly, something big happened. A woman named Emily Nichols, who's 29 years old and works a regular job, spoke up. She's not particularly striking in looks, just ordinary. But she has one interesting thing about her. She became a lawyer after finishing middle school. Emily has a sister named Jessica, who's 2 years younger. Jessica is pretty and outgoing, so their family always favored her. Emily, unlike Jessica, isn't noticed much. She's just average in looks and style. Plus, she's not very charming, so she didn't get much love from her family or relatives. At home, she felt ignored and often got treated coldly. She couldn't compete with Jessica's natural charm, which got all the attention from their parents. Instead of love, Emily got harsh treatment. I tried really hard in school, hoping my family would notice me even just a little bit. But no matter how well I did, I could never beat my sister. Eventually, I got tired of trying so hard to be loved by my family. I decided to focus on something else instead of seeking their affection. I threw myself into studying, telling myself I'd find my own value. Studying hard made me feel more sure of myself, and I started to see good results. I hoped that one day my parents would praise me for my academic achievements, so I kept studying late into the night during middle school. I always got the highest grades in my class and did better than everyone else in tests. But my parents never praised me. Instead, they seemed disappointed if I didn't get almost perfect scores in every subject. They'd say things like, Being at the top isn't enough. You need to be perfect in everything. Even if I got a 95% in a tough test, they'd still say it wasn't good enough. My mom's voice was like ice, sharp and cold. She always had something to say about my grades, making excuses feel useless. Are you trying to show off these less than perfect grades? She'd say, making me feel small. All I could do was mumble an apology. Yes, I'm sorry, I'd say quietly. No matter how hard I tried, my grades never seemed good enough for my parents. They never appreciated my efforts. If I didn't get a perfect score, they'd scold me. But what hurt more than their coldness was when my sister Jessica said seemingly innocent things. "Oh, are you getting in trouble again?" she'd say, barging into my room and smirking at my report card. Getting scolded even with good grades? That's sad. I get praise even for barely passing. Then she'd pretend to be concerned, saying, "I thought you were feeling down." But I guess I was wrong. "If you were really worried, you wouldn't talk to me like that." "That was my report card," I said. "See, that's your problem. You're always so standoffish. That's why Mom and Dad don't show you love. It's because of that," Jessica replied, her eyes cold and full of contempt. Even as she walked away, I could still feel her disdain. After she left, I heard her cheerful laughter with our parents from the living room. I should have been used to this by now, but I couldn't stop the sadness that welled up inside me. Tears streamed down my face. In my hand was my report card, now crumpled from my tight grip. I made a new resolve to stand on my own and escape this suffocating family environment. I decided that excelling in my studies and improving my abilities was the key to my freedom. From that moment on, I promised myself I would make it happen. I threw myself into my studies with even more determination than before. One day, as the autumn breeze blew through the classroom windows, my father made an unexpected announcement. "Emily, you will not go to high school. You need to start looking for a job immediately," he said coldly. I was shocked and didn't know what to say. "Why would you say that?" I asked, trying to hide my confusion. My father replied, "It's not worth investing more in you. If you want to go to high school, you'll have to pay for it yourself. If you can't do that, you'll have to give up." "But I'm still in middle school. I can't get a job that pays enough. How am I supposed to?" I tried to argue, but he wouldn't listen. "Then you'll just have to accept it. Your mother and I have decided to focus our finances on Jessica. We can't afford to spend more on you," he said firmly. "That's not fair." I screamed internally, but my father's decision was final. His harsh words seemed to drain all the color from my world, turning everything gray. My mother and sister watched me with unhidden smiles, clearly pleased. Now, I understand there were options to cover high school expenses, like finding schools with tuition waivers or scholarships. But back then, I didn't know about these options, and I felt devastated by the end of my educational path. From that day, my passion for learning faded quickly. The praise from my homeroom teacher, who admired my grades, felt empty. With no support for my education at home, my hopes of continuing my studies seemed impossible. After middle school, I started working at a local factory. I wasn't old enough to live on my own, so I worked hard until I turned 18. Most of my salary went to the household, and I saved the small amount I kept for myself. Those days were tough, like crawling through an endless tunnel. On my 18th birthday, I finally left that house. I left a single letter for my family and, with a firm decision in my heart, walked away from the home that was now just a memory. After I left, it was as if I never existed to my family. They didn't call or write. At first, living away from them was painful, and I felt very lonely. But over time, work kept me busy, and the loneliness faded. Living independently, the stress from home disappeared, and I felt a new sense of mental freedom. This peace of mind reignited my enthusiasm. I regained my love for learning and decided to start studying again. I began with the basics, reviewing diligently. The joy of learning filled my heart once more, and soon I was studying with ease. I moved on to high school textbooks and started reading extensively. During my reading journey, I became fascinated by books on law, which sparked a deep interest in the legal profession. Although I had only finished junior high, the idea of becoming a lawyer seemed far-fetched. But then I learned about the preliminary examination system, which opened up new possibilities for me. This system offered a chance for someone with my educational background to take the bar exam. Armed with this new information, I intensified my dedication to studying. I used every possible moment at home and during breaks at work to memorize legal terms. During lunch, I would eat while studying for the bar exam. My workplace was full of older colleagues, most around my parents' age. They noticed my efforts and came together to support me. At the age of 23, I passed the bar exam. After that, I left my long-term job at the factory and got a position at a top law firm. After about 4 years of training there, I opened my own law practice. Now, I am a legal consultant for a hospital and I feel content. Yet sometimes, I wonder how my parents would react if they knew I became a lawyer. I think about whether I would finally meet their expectations. Despite this, I have not shared anything with them. In my heart, I believe I will continue not to reach out to them. However, an unexpected reunion with my family came sooner than I anticipated. One evening after work, I came home to find a message on my phone from my younger sister Jessica saying she was getting married. Jessica is getting married, I murmured to myself. My sister, now 27, was engaged to a doctor. The notification said her wedding was next month, and they wanted me to attend. Despite the long period of estrangement from Jessica and my parents, I hesitated to meet them. But as a family member, I couldn't ignore the significant event. So I replied that I would attend. My sister quickly responded with the exact date and location of the ceremony. Her message ended with, "Don't forget the wedding gift," which made me smile wryly. It seemed Jessica was more interested in the gift than in wholeheartedly welcoming me. I decided to use the wedding as an opportunity to reunite with the family and then part ways again. On the day of Jessica's wedding, I, Donna, carefully chose a blue dress and headed to the venue. After completing the entrance formalities, I took my seat in the family area where my father and mother were already seated. "You have some nerve showing up here. You must be doing well for yourself with the meager earnings from the factory," my father said coldly. "Indeed, you're right. Introducing someone like her as family does not do us any credit as parents," my mother added disdainfully. "Jessica shouldn't have invited someone like you," my father continued. I told them exactly that, but they insisted on receiving the celebration money regardless, my mother said quietly, right in front of me. They continued their conversation without hesitation, ignoring my presence. This was my reality. I had a faint hope that sharing my side of the story might bridge the gap between my family and me, but it was quickly shattered. Both my father and mother avoided talking to me completely. In the silence, I glanced around the venue and noticed some familiar faces on the groom's side. Haven't I seen that person somewhere before? I wondered, feeling a sense of déjà vu. As I tried to remember, I looked up the groom's name, and my suspicion turned into certainty. The connection I had anticipated became clear, and I couldn't entirely hide my surprise. It felt like a twist of fate. However, I decided to keep my emotions in check and quietly participate in the ceremony. As the program proceeded, the bride and groom made a glamorous entrance, followed by his team. Guests offered warm words and entertaining performances, softening the atmosphere. Time passed, and the banquet gradually shifted to dinner and then to photo-taking sessions. Throughout this time, my parents got up without acknowledging my presence and moved towards the front where the bride and groom awaited. Jessica, like a magnet, clung close to them, smiling happily in each photograph taken. I pretended not to feel anything and focused silently on the meal in front of me. But unexpectedly, my sister Jessica approached me. She came closer with a smile, but her eyes had a spark of something more than excitement to see her sister after so many years. It seemed like she had an ulterior motive. "Big sis, it's been such a long time, hasn't it? Are you happy to spend time together like this?" she asked lightly. I nodded quietly, expressing my genuine thoughts. "Yes, the banquet food is really wonderful," I replied with a sarcastic smile. Jessica continued, "You can't get such luxurious food at the factory you work at, can you? You should be grateful for this opportunity." Something inside me felt like it was being torn apart, but I didn't show it on my face. Jessica's words grew sharper, cutting into me with a taunting edge. "Oh dear, did I upset you? I'm sorry, but it's natural for you to be envious, isn't it? Your little sister marrying a doctor and all." The phrase "I'm sorry" slipped from her mouth flippantly, as if it were a meaningless ornament. I kept my expression unchanged and quietly waited for her next move. Then Jessica whispered in my ear, "Big sis, because I feel sorry for you, I've come up with a great idea." Despite maintaining my composure, I asked with suspicion, "A great idea? What is it?" Jessica replied with satisfaction, "You'll see, just watch closely." Adorned in her elegant wedding dress, she gathered the attention of everyone around as she received a microphone from the staff. Suddenly, she announced loudly to the guests, "Ladies and gentlemen, you may not be aware, but my sister is here. She may not have the highest education or be the youngest, but if there is anyone kind-hearted enough, could you please take her under your wing?" My face turned red in an instant. "What are you saying, Jessica?" I exclaimed, unable to hide my shock and embarrassment. Jessica continued even louder. "Although she doesn't earn much and leads a modest life, is there someone here who can brighten my sister's future?" As everyone's attention focused on me, Jessica seemed to be relishing my confusion, sporting a smug smile. Then, something unbelievable happened. Jessica's disrespectful behavior escalated, and shockingly, even our usually gentle parents joined in. "Please treat her kindly." Their careless comment was the last straw for me. Rage surged inside me. How far will they go to satisfy their desire to ridicule someone? Especially at a moment of happiness? I couldn't believe it, but it was time for them to face reality. As the atmosphere in the venue shifted and murmurs grew, Jessica, unaware she was once again the center of attention, cheerfully took the microphone, calling out, "Emily, look, there are so many doctors gathered here. It's your chance." I remained silent, but my solemn gaze conveyed a strong will. "This is the end for you," I thought. Jessica, confused, could only respond with, "Heh." I approached her calmly, saying, "You'll understand soon just how terrible your actions have been." As Jessica tried to make an excuse, the groom suddenly raised his voice to address the venue. "Wait, please. Why are you leaving your seats?" His voice captivated everyone. Looking towards him, it was clear that all his colleagues from work were standing up, heading for the exit. Even as the groom tried to stop them, a dignified man who seemed to be the hospital director spoke to him firmly. "The recent remarks of the bride were so unpleasant that I'm in disbelief. I apologize, but we can no longer stay here. We will take our leave now." The groom rushed to stop the hospital director, offering to take responsibility for Jessica's words and actions. "Please wait. I admit her words were inappropriate. I'll speak to her directly and ensure she undergoes a serious change in awareness." However, the hospital director explained the seriousness of the situation and revealed information about me that the groom was unaware of. "The problem isn't just that. Do you know what kind of person her sister is?" The groom, confused, admitted he knew nothing about me. "Eh? No, I only met her sister for the first time today, and all I've heard was that she worked in a factory after graduating from middle school." The hospital director couldn't hide his irritation at the groom's ignorance. "Don't be ridiculous. Her sister is a respected lawyer and also serves as the legal advisor to our hospital." The groom was shocked to learn this, indicating he had no idea I was the hospital's legal advisor. "The lawyer is our hospital's advisor." Not only the groom, but also my sister, parents, and other guests were left speechless. I was contracted as the legal advisor to that hospital, which was where my sister's future husband worked. The reason the groom looked familiar was because I had seen him several times at hospital events. Other guests likely realized this too when they saw me. My sister's inappropriate comments only made things worse, prompting the hospital director to openly express his outrage. Although the groom himself is a member of the hospital's medical staff and has no direct relation to me, to the hospital director and other staff, the legal advisor is of significant importance. The groom's face turned even redder, and he stepped toward his sister, raising his voice in reproach. "What on earth is this? Because of your carelessness, my reputation is now tarnished." The groom reproached Jessica, his tone filled with indignation. Jessica stumbled over her words for a moment, then defended herself like a bewildered child. "It's not like that. I truly had no idea that my sister was in such a prestigious position." Growing more indignant, the groom continued to chastise Jessica for her ignorance. "Ignorance is no excuse. And how can you speak so lightly and disrespectfully of your own sister? As a human being, your behavior is at the very bottom. You've truly lost sight of what's valuable." Desperately trying to elicit some understanding, Jessica pleaded, "Wait a minute, listen. I have a good reason." However, the groom, unwilling to hear her explanation, declared decisively, "The withdrawal from the marriage itself. I have no interest in hearing your excuses. Our marriage discussion ends here." Shocked by his words, Jessica collapsed on the spot as if her soul had left her, her complexion turning deathly pale. Then, in a fit of anger, The groom and the guests disappeared from the wedding hall. As I was about to leave, I heard a desperate cry from my sister behind me. "Please help me, Emily." But I didn't let her cries sway me. Confronting her with a stern tone, I said, "Help you say? Why should I do such a thing for you? The situation you're in now is the result of your own actions. Trying to get a laugh with a joke that mocks others and then playing the victim when it fails is pathetic. I can't accept it." Jessica, confused and anxious, pleaded, "Why are you being so harsh? If you had known about my success as a lawyer," I replied calmly but firmly, "why didn't you bother to contact me? In fact, I was planning to end our relationship after this wedding, but seeing your unfortunate end, I'm somewhat satisfied. You must be disappointed that your engagement to a doctor has been called off. Well, you better work hard to find your next prospect." With those words, I left the venue with dignity. From afar, I could hear the critical voices of my sister and parents. Everything went as expected, and my sister's marriage was no more. The parents, who had believed a secure future was guaranteed through my sister marrying a doctor, expressed their anger towards her for the first time. Amidst the chaos, my sister, always pampered, couldn't bear their anger and sought solace with a broken heart. But I turned a blind eye to her pleas, devoid of sympathy. I never answered her calls, despite her repeated attempts, and I cut off all contact with the family. I heard that my sister had quit her job, now unemployed, estranged from our parents, and spending her days isolated at home. As for me, I am enjoying a very satisfying life both professionally and personally, leading a peaceful existence without major problems. Although my relationship with my family has been rocky, I am grateful for the strong support I receive from colleagues and friends. This contented life isn't just luck, it's the result of years of self-improvement and hard work. There were challenging days, but overcoming each obstacle has brought me to where I am today. Reflecting on my past struggles and their impact on my growth, I aspire to continue living a fulfilling life at my own pace, setting achievable goals while minimizing stress. Hello friends, my name is Mia, and I'm here to share the story of how my mother-in-law's actions backfired on her. Rita, my mother-in-law, might blame me, but she brought it on herself by trying to break up my marriage to her son, Nigel. If she hadn't tried to interfere, she wouldn't have ended up divorced. Here's what happened and how I finally removed Rita's toxic presence from my life. Rita absolutely hated me. Why? No reason. She hated every woman her son Nigel dated. She had an unhealthy attachment to Nigel and believed that any woman he dated was trying to steal him away from her. Her husband, my father-in-law Luke, wasn't like her at all. He is a kind man who still treats me like his own daughter, which is why I was so angry when I found out about Rita's betrayal. Here's what Rita tried to do. When Nigel and I announced our engagement, she accused me of cheating with my best friend. It was a ridiculous claim with no evidence, just based on her suspicions. My best friend, who is a guy, and I have been close since childhood. We have a great relationship but respect the boundaries set by our spouses. We even go on double dates and trips together. Nigel always trusted me and knew I was faithful, but Rita didn't see it that way. A man and a woman can't be that close without something going on. I bet she's cheating on you, Rita said to Nigel. Mom, you're being ridiculous. Mia and her best friend are just friends. She's not cheating. They hardly ever meet alone. I trust my fiancé completely, Nigel replied. You're naive, Nigel. Mia is only with you because you have a good income. She might even try to trap you with a baby, Rita insisted. I don't know what you're talking about, Rita. None of that will happen. I love your son, and my best friend is just my best friend. Nothing is going on between us. You're being insulting when you say those things, I added. I know you're lying, Mia. Don't pretend to be innocent with me. I know your type very well, Rita retorted. Of course, Rita knew about girls like that. She was one of them. But that would come to light later. Nigel didn't believe her ridiculous lies, and we got married anyway. She tried to tell everyone that he was marrying a cheater. Some family members were confused, but once Nigel explained the truth, they were angry at Rita and apologized to me. Nigel and his father confronted Rita and yelled at her. Although she wasn't sorry, she promised to behave from then on. I really thought Rita would change and stop her nonsense, but she didn't. Her next move was even worse. The beginning of Rita's downfall started when I got pregnant with our first child. It was a boy, and everyone was happy for us. Nigel was thrilled to become a father, and Luke was excited to be a grandfather. The only one who wasn't happy was Rita. She revived her Mia is cheating claims and even said the baby wasn't Nigel's. We were all furious, and Nigel tried to keep me out of the drama to avoid stressing me out. Now here comes the fun part. As soon as my son was born, Rita saw him and said, "This child can't be my son's. He looks nothing like Nigel did as a baby. This can't be your son, Nigel." "Mom, what is wrong with you?" "This is my son. Not all babies look exactly like their parents did as babies. I didn't look like Dad as a baby either." "You are being ridiculous," Nigel responded. "Nigel, open your eyes. This child is too light-skinned to be yours. We're all too tan to have a baby with this skin color," Rita insisted. "What on earth are you talking about, Rita? You're being absurd. The baby's skin is lighter because I'm fair-skinned, and babies' skin colors can change as they grow. Use some common sense before you accuse me," I argued. We had a huge fight with Rita about this. In the end, Nigel kicked her out of the hospital and was really angry with her. But Rita didn't waste any time. She immediately started spreading rumors that the baby wasn't Nigel's. Some people started to doubt us, especially since we didn't want the baby around everyone before he was a month old. Rita's gossip and pressure from others were getting to us. Finally, I gave in and agreed to a DNA test. Nigel didn't want me to. "Mia, you don't have to do this. I trust you completely. I know our son is mine. Rita can go jump in a lake," Nigel said. "Nigel, please. I'm tired of Rita insulting me and everyone assuming things. This drama has gone on for too long. I have nothing to hide, so let's just get it over with," I said. "Mia, Nigel, I think there's something you need to know," Luke interrupted. "What is it, Dad?" Nigel asked. "I don't know how to say this, but Nigel, you might not be my biological son," Luke said, his tone serious. We were all at home when Luke dropped this bombshell. He had been acting strangely for a while, so we were on edge, but we never expected him to say something like this. Nigel was especially shocked. "Dad, what are you saying?" "Listen, I saw a doctor recently, and some things he said made me question whether I'm your biological father." "Are you serious?" "Oh my God, are you sure?" "It's possible. There's a good chance, Nigel, and I think it's time we found out for sure." "Mia, don't tell Rita about this. Let's get me and Nigel tested. I want to confront her when we have the results. She's planning a family dinner for when the DNA reports for Nigel and my grandson come in." Honestly, I was speechless. I agreed to the plan because it seemed like the best option at the time. Nigel and Luke were too overwhelmed to handle it, so I took charge. The DNA test was done, and true to her word, Rita arranged a family dinner to reveal the results to everyone. She was clearly eager to embarrass me. But in her rush, Rita grabbed the wrong envelope. Nigel, Luke, and I noticed, but we stayed quiet. You can imagine our shock when Rita excitedly announced, "I was right. They're not a match. My son isn't the father of Mia's son. Mia is a cheater." Rita was ecstatic when the results showed no connection between the people tested. She saw it as a chance to kick me out of Nigel's life. She danced around, shouting to everyone that Nigel wasn't the father of my child. But I didn't react. Meanwhile, Luke and Nigel were pale and trembling with anger. Rita thought they were angry at me and said, "See, I told you all Mia's a cheater. Nigel isn't the father of her child. That's not my grandson. Mia's trying to pass off some stranger's kid as Nigel's. Oh, my poor boy. I tried to warn you, but no one listened." "Rita, you should have checked the DNA results in private before announcing them to everyone," I suggested. "Why would I do that, Mia? Everyone needs to know what a cheater you are. I'm not going to cover for you. You deserve to be kicked out of our lives for this," Rita snapped. Nigel couldn't take it anymore. I could see how furious and betrayed he felt. I didn't try to stop him from speaking out. "Stop it, Mom. Just stop. Mia isn't going anywhere. She's my wife, and I love and trust her. She's the mother of my child." "Nigel, what are you saying? These results clearly show the child isn't yours. Mia cheated on you and is trying to trap you with a baby. Here, look for yourself," Rita urged, handing Nigel the papers. "No, I don't need to look. You need to double-check these results and think before you accuse. You shouldn't have pushed for the DNA test. Look at the mess you've caused," Nigel replied. "Nigel, I know this is hard to accept, but it's the truth. Mia cheated on you. She's making you raise someone else's child," Rita persisted. At this moment, Luke found his voice and thundered, breaking his shocked silence. He was furious and ready to confront Rita. So, Mia's making Nigel raise someone else's child, just like you tried to pass off Nigel as my son years ago. Luke accused. Luke, what are you talking about? Nigel is your son, Rita exclaimed. I'm not like Mia, who sleeps around with everyone. Why are you attacking me because of her? Rita defended herself. Why don't you double-check the report, Rita? It'll help you understand what's going on. These are the DNA tests between Nigel and our son. Look, it clearly says they're father and son, I explained. What? Then why does this document say they're not related? What's happening? Rita exclaimed. If you read it carefully, you'd see it's for Nigel and Luke, and it says they're not related at all. Nigel isn't Luke's son, I revealed. Rita looked at me in disbelief. Her secret of 25 years was out, and she couldn't stop it from spreading. She called family members to expose my supposed secret, but it backfired when her own secret came out instead. Luke and Nigel were furious, and Rita knew she was in trouble. She kept reading the report, hoping it was wrong. No, this can't be true. Nigel is Luke's son. We were trying for a child when I got pregnant with him. Nigel is your son, Luke, Rita insisted. Oh really, Rita? So you're saying the reports are wrong and you didn't cheat on me? Luke challenged. Nigel is your son, Luke. Mia's trying to trick you with this paternity test to get back at me, Rita insisted. This wasn't just Mia's plan, Rita. It was mine too. Remember how I went to the doctor recently for tests? Well, it turns out I've been infertile my whole life. I never knew because I never went to the doctor before. Nigel can't be my son, Luke revealed. No, this can't be happening, Rita cried. This can't be true. I even have a feeling I know who Nigel's real father is. It's Fred, isn't it? Your ex before me, Luke accused. Rita turned pale when she heard Luke's accusation. Her reaction confirmed our suspicions. Nigel remained silent, clearly hurt and angry. I could see the pain and fear in his eyes. The room was filled with a sense of betrayal, and everyone looked at Rita with disbelief and anger. Even her own mother looked ready to faint. No one knew about Rita's affair or Nigel not being Luke's son. It was a disaster for her, and she started crying when Luke spoke. You don't need to say anything, Rita. Your reaction says it all. You cheated with Fred, didn't you? Luke said calmly. It doesn't matter now. My love for you is gone. I've suspected this for a while, and now that it's out in the open, I want a divorce. Luke, what are you saying? That was in the past. I ended things with Fred as soon as I found out I was pregnant with Nigel. He doesn't even know about Nigel. You're Nigel's father, through and through, Rita pleaded. That's right, Rita. I've been Nigel's father for 25 years. I don't care what the DNA test says. Nigel is my son, and he always will be. He may not be my biological child, but he's my blessing. I'll be his father for as long as I live, Luke declared firmly. Luke's words were exactly what Nigel needed to hear. He had been terrified of losing the only father he'd ever known. When Luke reassured him, Nigel broke down in tears. I held him close, trying to comfort him while Luke and the others confronted Rita. Rita tried to salvage the situation. You're right, Luke. You raised Nigel for 25 years. He's yours. Let's just forget about the DNA test and move on. We can? No, Rita. Just no, Luke interrupted. Things will never be the same. Every time I look at you, I'll be reminded of your betrayal. Nigel may be my son, but you're no wife of mine. A woman who cheats on her husband can't be my wife. I'm divorcing you. That's final. No, Luke, you can't do this. We've been married for 30 years. You can't leave me over this. Rita pleaded, shocked and desperate. But nobody was sympathetic. Even her own family was siding with Luke's decision and hurling insults at her. Rita continued crying, begging for forgiveness. Then she turned to Nigel, hoping he could sway Luke. Nigel, look at what your father is saying. He's going to leave me. Please, don't let him. Please, make him understand, Rita implored. Don't you dare call me son. I don't want to call you mother anymore. You've been deceitful, dragging Mia through the mud when you were the one hiding the truth. I can't even look at you, Nigel snapped. No, Nigel, I am your mother. I gave birth to you. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry for everything. Please don't hate me. I made a mistake. Mia, please. You're a woman. You understand. Please help me make them understand, Rita pleaded desperately. I never expected this to happen. Rita was so desperate that she started begging me for help. It was pathetic and disgusting. She thought I would overlook her sins just because I'm a woman. How could she think I'd be on her side? I wanted her to suffer for what she'd done. Oh hell no, Rita. You brought this on yourself. You were the one pushing Nigel to divorce me, claiming my son isn't his. Now that it's true for you, did you really expect me to support you? You targeted me and my innocent son for nothing. You betrayed my husband and my father-in-law for 3 decades. You don't deserve anyone's forgiveness. I agree with Luke. He needs to divorce you. It was a mistake, Mia. You're an honest woman and I know you care about your family. Your new family is about to be torn apart, Mia. Please don't let it happen. My family consists of me, my son, Nigel, and Luke. You're not part of that family, Rita. A woman who treated me and her own family so badly can't be considered family to me. I don't want you anywhere near me or my son again. The rest is up to Nigel to decide, I stated firmly. I don't want you near me either, Rita. Stay away from me and my family. Dad is doing the right thing by divorcing you. You brought this upon yourself. You wanted to prove a son doesn't belong to his father, to break up a marriage. Well, congratulations, Rita. It's happening to your own family now, Nigel added, his voice icy and controlled. Rita looked stunned, as if she'd been drenched in ice water. Nigel's calm demeanor surprised everyone. He didn't need to raise his voice to convey his message. It was clear he meant every word. Rita sank to the floor, avoiding eye contact. Family members berated her, but I felt no sympathy. Luke informed her she needed to leave his house soon. It was his property inherited before their marriage. Living in an at-fault state, Luke could sue Rita for paternity fraud, possibly avoiding alimony payments. Rita was in serious trouble now. As days passed, Luke stayed true to his word. He wasted no time in consulting a divorce lawyer the next day and initiated the eviction process against Rita. She threw a dramatic tantrum, full of tears, begging, and shouting, but Luke remained firm in his decision to remove her from his life. Rita bombarded Nigel and me with texts and calls, pleading and making excuses for her actions. We read a few messages before blocking her altogether. Then Rita showed up at our doorstep, tearful and desperate. Luke's kicking me out, guys. I have nowhere to go. I only have a little money left for a divorce lawyer. I need a place to stay. You can go wherever you like, Rita. We won't be providing you with shelter. We've made it clear we want nothing to do with you, I responded firmly. I'm your mom, Nigel. Why are you calling me by my name? I am your mother, Rita pleaded. I was seething with anger. While I was glad Rita was facing consequences, the paternity ordeal had taken a toll on both Nigel and Luke. Luke coped in his own way, but Nigel was struggling. It was heartbreaking to see him in such pain while also caring for our newborn. Rita acting like it was no big deal infuriated me. I'm sorry, Rita, but you've lost that privilege. You're nothing more than a stranger to us now. And Nigel's right. We won't be providing you with shelter, I declared firmly. Mia, please, don't do this. My grandson needs his grandma, Rita pleaded. Don't you dare call my son your grandson. Your own son refuses to call you mom, and you can't suddenly be a grandma to a child you never wanted in your life. Don't try to guilt us using my innocent child. It won't work. We've had enough of you, Rita. It's time for you to leave. Don't bother coming back, because I'll call the police. Trust me, you don't want more legal trouble after this. It sounds like Rita faced the consequences of her actions head-on. After some more tears and pleading, Nigel firmly shut the door in her face. It was satisfying to see her facing the consequences of her actions, considering the havoc she wreaked on so many lives. Eventually, she left when she realized we wouldn't budge. Rita mostly stayed away until it was time for her to leave Luke's house. She tried to beg and guilt-trip us into letting her in again, but we stood our ground. When we threatened to call the police, she finally left. I heard she found a place to stay with a friend who got her a job in their office as a warehouse worker. The divorce proceedings were messy, with Rita trying to tilt things in her favor, but her excuses fell flat in our at-fault state. They divorced in 6 months and went their separate ways. Rita continued to harass Luke to get her old life back, but he remained firm. Now she's miserable, working in a warehouse and barely scraping by. She's been cut off from the entire family and excluded from parties and gatherings. Meanwhile, Nigel and Luke are doing much better after starting therapy. It's heartening to see their strong bond endure despite the paternity revelation. We still have our weekly family dinners, and Luke often visits to spend time with his grandson. Overall, we've managed to return to our normal lives while Rita is left to wallow in loneliness and misery. Hey there, I'm Stacy, and I'm 37 years old. My husband, Eric, and I were throwing a party at our house to welcome back my brother-in-law, Uncle Isaac. He had just come home after spending 5 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Yep, you heard that right, prison. But before you jump to conclusions about him or our family, let me tell you, Isaac was innocent. He got caught up in something he had nothing to do with. It took 5 long years of legal battles to prove his innocence and set him free. So you can imagine how excited we all were to have him back with us. The party was buzzing, everyone having a great time. Isaac was in the spotlight, catching up with everyone and sharing stories from his time in prison. He had a special bond with my daughter, Wendy, who used to be really close to him before all this mess happened. Laughter and lively chats echoed through the house. The smell of yummy food filled the air as we all enjoyed a feast fit for royalty. It was a special time for our family, filled with happiness and togetherness, which made my heart feel warm. Once the party ended and everyone left, we were still buzzing with excitement. We were thankful to see Isaac back with us, alive, happy, and healthy after his unfair time in prison. Life went back to normal, and it felt like the drama in our family had calmed down, at least for a little while. But sadly, that happy feeling didn't last long. A couple of days after the party, I was sitting in the living room, lost in a book, when Wendy burst in looking scared and angry. I quickly put my book down and went to her side, worried about what had happened. "Wendy, what's the matter? You look really scared. Tell me what's going on," I said, my voice filled with worry. Tears were rolling down Wendy's cheeks as she struggled to catch her breath. "Mom, I found something. A camera. Hidden in one of my plants." My heart raced and I felt a surge of fear. A hidden camera in my daughter's room. It made my blood boil. But I had to stay calm for Wendy. We hurried to her room, my mind racing with questions. And there it was, tucked away among the leaves of her favorite plant. A tiny camera, invading her privacy. How long had it been there? I felt a mix of disgust, fear, and anger rising inside me. I wasted no time and called Eric right away, my voice shaky with a mix of feelings as I shared the shocking news. "Eric, you won't believe what I just found out. There's a hidden camera in Wendy's room. We need to act fast." Eric sounded both concerned and furious. "I'm coming over, Stacy. We're not going to let this slide. Our daughter deserves her privacy, and whoever did this will pay for it." While we waited for Eric, Wendy clung to me, her tears soaking my shirt. She blamed herself for not noticing the camera sooner, but I assured her it wasn't her fault. I promised to support her through this unsettling situation. When Eric arrived, his eyes reflected our emotions. Anger barely contained beneath a calm surface. We carefully examined the camera, searching for any clues that could lead us to the person responsible. It was a betrayal of trust that hurt deeply, and we were determined to uncover the truth. The invasion of our safe space shattered the feeling of security we had worked so hard to build for our family. We needed to take action quickly, not only to protect our daughter, but also to restore our peace of mind. If there was one hidden camera in Wendy's room, who knew how many more might be lurking elsewhere in our home? "Don't worry, Wendy. We won't stop until we find out who did this," I reassured her. "Thanks, Mom. Can I please nap in the guest room?" "I don't feel comfortable in mine right now, and I'm really tired," Wendy asked. "Of course, sweetheart. You do what you need to feel safe." "I'm so sorry this happened," I replied gently. Wendy headed to the guest room, likely wanting some time alone after her privacy had been violated. I couldn't shake off the feeling of malice. Who could do something like this? We decided to review the footage, gather any evidence we could find, and involve the authorities if necessary. Nobody messes with our family like this. Though I was shaken, I found comfort in knowing Eric and I were on the same page. We sat together in the quiet of our living room, the seriousness of the situation weighing heavily on us. Our minds raced, trying to figure out who could have planted the camera in Wendy's room. As we talked it through, one name kept coming up: Isaac. I broached the subject carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. The timing is hard to ignore. The camera was likely planted during the family gathering, and who had the opportunity? Isaac. Stacy, you can't seriously think Isaac would do something like this. Yes, he's had his problems, but he's not a creep. He's my brother, for crying out loud. Eric protested. I understood Eric's reaction completely. Family bonds are strong, and suspecting a relative of such a violation feels almost unthinkable. But I couldn't ignore the clues that seemed to point towards Isaac's involvement during the family gathering. Gathering my thoughts, I spoke softly but firmly. Eric, I know it's tough to consider, but we have to face reality. Isaac spent a lot of time with Wendy at the gathering, which suggests he may have had some interest in her. Plus, he just got out of prison. People change, and their experiences can influence their actions. Our priority is to protect our daughter, even if it means questioning those closest to us. Eric looked weighed down by the situation, torn between loyalty and the evidence. Eventually, he nodded slowly, his voice filled with a mix of resignation and discomfort. I don't want to believe it, Stacy, but you're right. The timing and circumstances are hard to ignore. We have to find out the truth for Wendy's sake. The idea of confronting Isaac about the betrayal weighed heavily on our minds, but we knew it was necessary. The safety of our home and our daughter depended on it. As we brace ourselves for the tough conversation ahead, we promised to approach it with care and empathy. Finding the truth was crucial not just for our own peace, but to protect Wendy from any further harm. Days passed, and Eric struggled with conflicting feelings, loyalty to his brother versus the nagging suspicion in the back of his mind. The tension strained our relationship with Isaac and cast a shadow over our family as we grappled with uncertainty. A plan started to take shape in my mind. Risky, but it felt necessary to catch the culprit. I shared my idea with Eric, suggesting that hosting another family gathering could be the key to uncovering the truth. Think about it, Eric. Whoever planted that camera might try to retrieve it during another family event. This gathering, meant for bringing us together, could give us the chance to catch them in the act. Eric hesitated, still torn between his loyalty to his brother and the need to uncover the truth. But as I explained the urgency of our situation, he eventually agreed that we had to explore every option before getting the authorities involved. It was a tough choice, but necessary to protect our family and regain our sense of safety. I called Tina, Isaac's wife, to propose the idea of another family gathering. Hey Tina, we were thinking of having another family get-together. Are you and Isaac free to join us? Tina's response was surprisingly enthusiastic. She eagerly accepted, expressing her excitement for another gathering. It struck me as a bit odd, since she was usually more reserved, but I brushed it off, thinking she was just happy for family time. With the plans in motion, Eric and I focused on getting everything ready. Our home buzzed with anticipation and tension. We checked every corner for signs of intrusion, aiming to create a sense of normalcy while secretly preparing to catch the culprit. The stakes were high as the day of the gathering drew near, and our family's future hung in the balance. I felt a mix of nerves and determination. We were stepping into the unknown, but we were prepared to face whatever came our way to keep our daughter safe and our home secure. When the day arrived, our home filled with familiar faces once more. Excitement buzzed in the air, but underneath tension simmered. Uncle Isaac, ever charming, greeted everyone warmly, but Eric and I couldn't shake our suspicions. They loomed over us, casting a shadow on the festivities. To ensure Wendy's safety, we made the tough call to keep her away from the gathering, arranging a sleepover with a friend without revealing our concerns. With her gone, our focus sharpened, and we kept a watchful eye on anyone near her room. As the party started, laughter and chatter masked our true intentions. Eric and I played the part of hosts while secretly watching for any suspicious behavior. Our detective skills were in full swing. As the night went on, the music and dancing created a lively atmosphere, masking our true intentions. But amidst the celebration, I couldn't ignore Tina's strange behavior. She kept excusing herself, rushing off to the bathroom with an unusual urgency. My instincts kicked in, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Driven by curiosity, I decided to approach her. When Tina headed towards the bathroom once more, I followed quietly, my heart racing. But instead of going inside, she turned and entered Wendy's room. Panic surged through me. I knew I had to confront her, to uncover the truth behind her actions. Stepping forward, I called out her name, my voice tinged with both accusation and concern. Tina, what are you doing in Wendy's room? Startled, Tina spun around, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. But there was no escaping the truth. The tension between us thickened, heavy with unspoken accusations. "I asked you a question, Tina. What are you doing in my daughter's room?" Tina's facade cracked, tears welling in her eyes. Her voice shook as she said, "I was just looking for Wendy. I was surprised she wasn't with us for the party." "You were going through her drawers," I pointed out, my tone unwavering. Tina looked down, realizing her hands were still in the drawer she'd been searching. I can explain." "Save it." The person we least expected, the one we had staunchly defended, had betrayed our trust. The room swirled with a whirlwind of disbelief and disappointment. I motioned for Eric to join me, and he rushed over, assuming we had caught Isaac in Wendy's room. But his expression turned to shock when he saw it was Tina. "You planted that camera, didn't you? Why, Tina? Why would you do something like this?" Eric demanded, his voice laced with anger and pain. Without hesitation, Eric called Isaac over to Wendy's room, his tone firm and commanding. Isaac, sensing the urgency, quickly joined us, confusion written all over his face. As Isaac stepped into the room, his gaze fell on Tina, tears streaming down her cheeks. Before anyone could say another word, Eric quietly closed the door, shielding the rest of the party from the unfolding drama. Taking a deep breath, I steadied my voice as I began to explain everything. I recounted the shocking discovery of the camera in Wendy's room, the invasion of their privacy that had shattered their trust. My words hung heavy in the air, the truth weighing down the room. "We planned this gathering, Isaac, to catch whoever planted the camera. And to be honest, we initially suspected you." "Bro, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have doubted you, especially after everything with prison," Eric interjected, his voice filled with regret. "But it was mostly me who accused you, Isaac. I'm truly sorry. After finding Tina here, I realized you weren't involved." Isaac's brows furrowed, confusion clouding his expression as he looked between Stacy, Eric, and Tina. He turned to Tina, seeking answers. "Tina, why were you in Wendy's room? What's going on?" "We caught Tina going through Wendy's things. She's the one who planted the camera. Now that everyone's here, Tina, you need to explain yourself. Why would you do something like this?" Tina's eyes darted around the room, searching for support, but Isaac's shock mirrored the confusion in the room. He couldn't understand why Tina would do something so invasive, especially to her own family. Okay, you got me. Yes, I planted the camera in Wendy's room. I was just coming to take it back." "We already know that. We caught you. We want to know why," Eric pressed. "Because I'm jealous, okay," Tina blurted out. Tina's confession hung heavy in the air, exposing her jealousy for all to see. She admitted, with a mix of shame and frustration, that her actions were driven by envy towards Wendy. She had noticed Isaac and Wendy talking a lot during the last family gathering, and it sparked jealousy within her. She questioned what made Wendy so special, what drew Isaac's attention and affection towards her. Isaac felt the need to defend himself, his voice tinged with defensiveness and genuine concern. "Tina, you know I care about Wendy, but not in a weird way. Being her uncle is important to me. I was just checking on her, making sure she was okay. It was out of love and family concern, nothing strange." "But why were you always praising Wendy? It made me wonder what was so great about her," Tina countered, her jealousy still evident. "So you're upset because I'm proud of being an uncle?" "Tina, is there something wrong with being proud of my niece? I have every right to support and appreciate Wendy. It's not about playing favorites, it's just genuine love for family." I didn't expect you to react like this. Trying to navigate the emotions in the room, I turned to Tina. "What were you hoping to find by planting the camera? What did you think you'd uncover?" "I just wanted to see how Wendy lives, you know. Maybe if I understood her better and acted like her, I could get the same attention from you, Isaac. I wanted to feel valued like she is." "You're acting crazy, Tina. Jealous of a teenager. That's messed up," Isaac snapped, his frustration evident. After an awkward silence that could rival a library, Eric decided to end the party. "Good call," I agreed. "The last thing we need is to keep partying after discovering Tina's true colors." The resident creep of the year. Once the relatives were gone, it was just Eric and me left to deal with the fallout of Tina's actions. And let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. I unleashed a verbal storm on Tina, making a sailor blush. I mean, Who does that? Who plants a camera in their niece's room? Sick, that's who. Isaac looked lost, disappointment written all over his face. I guess he couldn't believe what his wife had done. Can't say I blame him. I'd be equally stunned if my partner turned out to be a lunatic. As the dust settled and our emotions ran dry, Eric and I found ourselves sitting in our once cheerful home, now tainted by one family member's sinister acts. The next day, when Wendy returned, it fell to me to break the news, to expose the twisted truth. Tears filled Wendy's eyes as I recounted the violation of her privacy. The poor girl, innocent and unsuspecting, couldn't believe someone in our own family could do something so awful. Mom, I never imagined this could happen, especially from Tina. Seriously. Wendy's disbelief mirrored my own. I shook my head, struggling to comprehend it myself. I know it's hard to believe. Tina's really crossed a line. With Wendy in my arms, her tears staining my shoulder, I made her a promise. We were going to fight back. Pressing charges was just the beginning. Tina needed a reality check, and we were ready to give it to her. Her tearful eyes met mine, seeking reassurance. But Mom, how is Uncle Isaac doing? I sighed, the weight of our shattered family hanging heavily in the air. Honestly, he's struggling. It's hard for him to celebrate his freedom knowing he's married to someone who's acted so terribly. So, are they getting a divorce? I don't know, sweetheart. I hate what she's done to us. Me too. But right now, our priority is your safety. We're getting a restraining order against Tina so she won't come near you again. We're pressing charges and getting a restraining order against Tina, the one with the camera. And the bond between Isaac and our family? It's strained, shattered by this betrayal. There's an awkward silence between us, a reminder of how far jealousy can go. But we're determined to rebuild and find comfort in those who truly care. The road ahead might be tough, but we're ready to face it. Our family's love will help us through. Hello, my name is Madison, and I'm 34 years old. When I was growing up, my biggest dream was to be a journalist or work with magazines. I loved writing and was good at keeping up with trends. So it wasn't surprising that I decided to study journalism and media in college. After I graduated, I worked for several companies, but none of them were the big famous ones. I didn't mind because I was doing what I had always dreamed of. Eventually, I got a job at a pretty big company and felt like I had finally made it. A few years after I graduated college, when I was about 28, I met my husband, Scott. Scott's family was pretty wealthy and had their own business. I'm mentioning this because his mother, Tricia, always disliked me and insulted me. She thought I wasn't good enough for him and that I shouldn't have married him. Scott and I dated for about 3 years before we decided to get married. As I mentioned, Scott's mom, Tricia, didn't like me. She always put me down and made fun of me for working at a magazine and having a journalism degree. At first, her behavior really hurt me because no one should be treated like that. But for some reason, Tricia thought it was okay to treat me that way. Scott always defended me against his mother. His dad, Fred, also stood up for me whenever he heard Tricia's remarks. I was thankful for both of them. As time went on, I started to get used to Tricia's insults. Scott even suggested that we limit contact with her. But I didn't agree. Scott worked with his dad, and if he stopped talking to his mom, it could make things awkward for Fred. Fred was a wonderful person, and I didn't want to put him in a tough spot. I also didn't want Scott to cut off his family because of me. I learned to deal with it mostly because we only saw Tricia twice a month at most. But things changed when Fred had to go overseas for a business project. Tricia didn't want to be alone, so Scott and I agreed to let her stay with us until Fred returned. I had a bad feeling about it, but I believed that family should always come first. Living with Tricia was really tough. She constantly nitpicked and criticized everything I did, and the insults never seemed to stop. But I could handle all of that as long as she didn't actually harm me. However, everything changed during one week that turned out to be really difficult. I had a major presentation coming up at work. We were redesigning a section of our magazine, and I was responsible for making it great. This presentation was crucial because it would determine if I got a promotion, but Tricia didn't understand why it was so important. I don't think knowing would have changed her opinion of me anyway. Since Tricia was staying with us, she saw how stressed I was about it. The night before my big presentation, I was talking to Scott about how nervous I felt when she overheard us. She walked into the living room and decided to share her thoughts. This is a big deal. All the top bosses will be watching me. I can't imagine how scary this must be for you. I'm glad you had it easier with your business, but this is such a different game. I'm so scared of messing everything up. Don't say that. You'll do great. I wish I could believe that. I just feel so unsure of everything. What if I mess up the presentation? I couldn't help but overhear you both talking. Mom, we're having a private conversation. Well, Madison, I just wanted to say that you have nothing to worry about. You probably don't have the skills for this, so you'll probably do badly tomorrow. Excuse me? Just treat it as a chance to quit your job and be a housewife. Then maybe you'll be good enough for my son. I can't believe he married a journalist. Mom, you're crossing a line. Leave. You know what? I don't have time for your nonsense, Trisha. I have bigger things to worry about than your opinion of me and my relationship with your son. How dare you talk to me like that? So it's fine for you to talk to me that way, but not the other way around. Scott, say something. Your wife is disrespecting your mother. She's just standing up for herself. I don't see anything wrong with it. She's manipulating you. Look at how easily you can turn your back on family. Madison will regret this. I was furious at Trisha for barging into Scott's and my conversation and insulting me so blatantly. Scott tried to apologize for his mother's behavior, but I stopped him. He wasn't responsible for her hurtful words. After that, we decided to call it a night and went to sleep. I was too focused on everything else to even think about Trisha's threat towards me. I figured she would just continue tormenting me, which honestly, I didn't care about at that moment. Dealing with her could wait until after my presentation. The next day, I hurried into work with my laptop, ready for my presentation. But when I opened it, I realized something was terribly wrong. All the files on my desktop were gone, and my laptop had been reset. I started to panic. I had emailed the presentation to myself, so I tried to calm down. But when I logged into my email, I saw that all my emails were deleted, even from the trash. My heart sank and tears filled my eyes. I felt an overwhelming fear. I had to explain everything to my boss, who was not happy. He yelled at me for a while before telling me not to bother with the presentation because he had someone else do it in case I messed up. I knew then that any chance for me to advance in the company was gone. I couldn't believe this was happening. I rushed home in tears. Scott hadn't left for work yet, and when he saw me, he took the day off to be with me. He held me as I cried, and when I calmed down a bit, he asked me what happened. What's wrong, honey? Did the presentation not go well? There was no presentation, at least not one that I gave. Huh? What do you mean? You put so much effort into preparing for it. You hardly slept those past few days because you were working so hard. I know, but when I got there, I opened my laptop and found out that everything had been deleted. What? How did that happen? I don't know. It was really embarrassing and humiliating to have to explain it to my boss. Wait, did you not back it up somewhere else? Yeah, I emailed it to myself, but even my inbox and trash were emptied. Oh my God, I'm so sorry this happened. What did your boss say? He yelled at me a lot, called me unprofessional and lazy. He had someone else do the presentation. But you still have your job, right? Yeah, but I'm stuck in this position. I can't move up or get promoted. I'm done here. Don't worry, honey. You'll find a better job. I'll be here for you through it all. Just keep working here until you're ready to leave. Yeah, I'll give my notice now. I can't believe I worked so hard for this, and just when I was close, it slipped away. I felt really down after that. I take pride in doing well on my projects, so what happened was really tough for me. It was traumatic, to say the least. I wasn't given any more important work at my job. I held off on quitting, but after another week, I knew it was time. I handed in my notice and waited for my time to be up. Through it all, Trisha seemed strangely happy. She saw me crying once and made remarks about how she knew I would fail. At first, I was mad at her, but then I started thinking about her behavior. Maybe she was happy because she thought I would finally become a housewife, or maybe she was happy because she had something to do with my career falling apart. I can't quite explain it, but I had this gut feeling that Trisha had something to do with my laptop troubles. I wanted to talk to Scott about it, but I needed evidence first. So I decided to set up a hidden camera in the office to catch Trisha in the act. I ordered a camera disguised as a smoke detector and installed it on the ceiling. I connected it to my phone and got ready to implement my plan. The next step was to somehow let Trisha know about my upcoming presentation. That wasn't too hard. I just paced around the office looking worried. Scott was still at work, unaware of what I was doing. Trisha noticed my anxious behavior and asked what was going on. "What's wrong? Are you stressed about another project?" I need to tell someone. Since you asked, I've been given another chance to present my work, and it could lead to a raise. Oh, really? Yeah, and I'm really nervous because this is my last chance to get things right, and I have to do it well. Why aren't you telling Scott? Is it because you're embarrassed about your job? No, it's because I don't want to disappoint him again. Just keep it between us, okay? I'm not promising anything, but it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. Why do you always want me to fail? I just think you'd be better off as a housewife. It's less embarrassing than what you're doing now. I don't have time for this, and I don't care what you think. Please leave me alone so I can practice my presentation before Scott gets home. Trisha left, but not before giving my laptop a look and smirking at me. I had a feeling something was up. I stayed in the office a little longer, only leaving when Scott came home. Trisha didn't mention my presentation, but she kept smirking at me during dinner. After we went to bed, I checked the footage from the hidden camera on my phone, keeping an eye out for any movement. Scott and I watched a few episodes of our favorite TV series as usual. There wasn't any action until midnight when Trisha entered the office. I quickly showed Scott what was happening on my phone. He seemed puzzled at first, but then he saw Trisha messing with my laptop until it shut off and restarted. Scott looked at me shocked. I explained what I had done, and he was furious with Trisha. Trisha was still in the office, snooping through my files. Scott got up and stormed into the office. He flung the door open, and Trisha looked startled when she saw him. Scott tried to stay calm and asked her what she was doing. "What are you doing in here, Mom?" "Oh, nothing." "Really? Then why is Madison's laptop still open? Are you accusing me of going through her stuff?" "I think you did more than that, Mom. Firstly, I came in here because I thought this room needed tidying up. And secondly, you know your wife isn't forgetful. She wouldn't leave her laptop open. You wanted to clean the office at midnight, and don't talk about Madison like that. Don't talk to me like that. I'm still your mother." "Yeah, my mother who loves to hurt and sabotage my wife." "What are you saying?" "We caught you on camera resetting Madison's laptop. You were spying on me?" "No, we just wanted to make sure that what happened to Madison wouldn't happen again." "That's disgusting. How could you film me without my consent?" "I didn't put cameras in your room. I put one in my office, and you went in there without my permission. And even if it was wrong, it's nothing compared to what you did to Madison. I want you out of our house tomorrow." "But I'll be all alone," Trisha protested. "I don't care. I don't want to talk to you." The next morning, Trisha tried to delay things by helping with breakfast and washing dishes, but Scott wasn't having it. As soon as she finished, Scott came down with her bags and told her he'd packed for her and ordered her an Uber. Trisha pleaded with him to let her stay, even crying, which was unusual for her as she usually made others cry. Scott ignored her and went to our room. Trisha turned to me and started yelling, blaming me for setting her up. I told her if anyone should be yelling, it's me. She's lucky I haven't shared the footage with her friends and family. If they knew what she did to me, she'd lose them all. That shut her up pretty quickly. After Trisha left, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Though I was still upset about my job situation, I knew I could bounce back and do even better. Scott was my biggest support throughout everything. Once my notice period ended, I took some time off to rest and figure out my next steps. Over the next few months, I took courses in different areas of my field. I knew if I focused on a specific niche and found the right job, I could achieve a lot more. I didn't want to expose Trisha, but after years of her putting me down, I wanted to show her what I was capable of. I wanted to reach heights even she hadn't seen. With Scott's help, I got recommendations in various places. Being wealthy also meant having many connections, which was a huge advantage. With my experience and Scott's support, I landed the role of chief editor at a major magazine known worldwide. The work was tough, but it was worth it. Somewhere along the journey to becoming chief editor, I forgot about my desire to show Trisha what I was capable of. In fact, we hadn't had any contact with her during those months. I knew Scott still spoke with his father because they worked together, but Scott hadn't heard much from or about his mother. His father, Fred, Said she was upset with us about something but wouldn't say what. At least Trisha took my warning seriously. But I knew I have to see her eventually, and it turned out my company was throwing a huge party with lots of big names invited, including Trisha and Fred. Scott and I dressed our best because, for the first time, we were both important figures. When we arrived, Trisha and Fred spotted us and waved us over. We greeted them, and Trisha gave me a once-over before smirking. "Look at you trying to fit in," she sneered. "Trisha, ignore her, Madison. You look lovely, as always," Fred said kindly. "Thanks, Fred. How have you been?" "Yeah, how's unemployment treating you?" Trisha interjected. "Wait, you're unemployed?" Fred asked, surprised. "Oh yeah, she messed up at her job, and they let her go. I've always said she's not good enough for our son." "Look at her, she can't even keep a job," Trisha mocked. "That's enough, Mom," Scott said sternly. "Stop siding with her. It's bad enough having to see her everywhere. We wouldn't have to if you just left her like I said," Trisha insisted. "Okay, that's enough. Either you stop talking or I'm leaving," Scott warned. "But Madison, sweetie, if you need a job, let me know. It would be great to work with you," Fred offered sincerely. "That's really kind of you, Fred, but I can't accept the offer," I replied. "Of course not. I told you she's lazy and incompetent," Trisha muttered. Just then, my name was called, and people started cheering. I looked towards the small stage, and the CEO was there, waving and motioning for me to come up. I turned to Fred and Trisha, excusing myself. Fred looked amused, but Trisha seemed confused and angry. The CEO gave a speech, praising my work in the company and my ability to innovate and bring new ideas to the magazine. The audience cheered loudly, asking for a speech. I thanked Scott for his support and all my colleagues who helped make the magazine what it is. I ended by thanking a one person who doubted me because their negativity pushed me to be better. As I walked off the stage, everyone stopped me to congratulate me and ask about the unnamed critic, but I kept that to myself. I made my way over to the table where Fred, Trisha, and Scott were seated. Scott hugged me tightly, congratulating me, and Fred stood up to hug me too. Trisha glared at me. "Oh, Madison, this is amazing. I can see why you wouldn't want to work with us," Fred said. "Thanks, Fred. Although I'll admit, if you'd offered me the job about 6 months ago, I might have taken it." "You should have. At least then you'd be paid more," Trisha snorted. "Paid more? I could never put a price on this," Fred replied. "Right, she's not worth all that money," Trisha scoffed. "No, I mean I couldn't match what she's earning right now." "What do you mean?" Trisha asked, confused. "Do you want me to tell her, Madison? It might come off as boasting if I say it," Fred offered. "Madison makes at least 5 times more than I do in her current position," Fred revealed. "Here? How? Oh yeah, she must be making way more than Scott or I could ever imagine," Trisha exclaimed. "That can't be right. You must be mistaken," Trisha insisted. "He's not mistaken, Mom. I really did mean it when I thanked you. You've been nothing but a bully to me, and I hope seeing me more successful than anyone in your family stings. Anyway, I have other people to talk to. Excuse us, Trisha. Fred, feel free to join us anytime." "Goodbye," I said as Scott and I left a stunned Trisha at the table. Fred laughed and raised his drink to me as Scott and I walked away. I'd never felt more alive and satisfied. It was an incredible accomplishment, and I'm grateful to Scott for his support. Thanks for listening.